Chapter 611. Xiao Yinru's face turned cold, and Shuqi took 2 steps forward to stand in front of her. She glared at Chu Lu and Yu Jie and shouted, "What are you talking about? Apologize to the first Mississippi. Don't you know how the first Miss treats the fifth Miss? The first Miss specially came up the mountain to accompany the fifth Miss for fear that the fifth Miss would be lonely on the mountain. Besides, why did you go down the mountain before?" Chu Lu and Yu Jie looked at each other and hesitated. Yu Jie said, "She said that old Madame Qin was ill and asked our miss to go down the mountain to visit her. If she didn't go to visit her, she would be ungrateful." "Yes, what happened in the Qin's mansion has nothing to do with our first Mississippi. Our first Miss doesn't know what happened in the Qin's mansion. If someone knows it, he must be a member of the Qin's mansion. Think about who she offended when you were in the Qin's mansion and made her do this. Moreover, this person is familiar with the fifth Miss's character and the internal affairs of the Qin's mansion." Shuqi reminded them. Chu Lu hesitated for a long while and asked hesitantly, "The first Miss Qin? Who else could it be except her? Think about it. She is the one who has so many conditions." Shuqi said angrily, "Our first Miss loves the fifth Miss and has always been very close to the fifth Mississippi. How could she hurt the fifth Miss and want to kill her?" Her words sounded reasonable. Xiao Wanru, who was lying motionless on the bed, sneered in her heart. These words were said by Shuqi. No matter what Shuqi said or who she was referring to, it had nothing to do with her. She was still the gentle and kind first Miss Xiao. Even if someone thought that this servant girl had gone too far, she was just a servant girl. Who could do anything to a servant girl who protected her master? Xiao Yinru was indeed a good servant girl. However, it would not be so easy for her to get out of the predicament today. Even though Xiao Yinru was smart and could deal with all kinds of tricks, she couldn't deal with Qin Yuru, who was furious and only knew how to fight back. Xiao Yinru couldn't be blamed for what had happened before. If there was, it should be a few words spread by Qin after she went crazy. However, since Qin had gone crazy, few people believed her words. She just deliberately asked others to spread more words about Xiao Yinru. As expected, Xiao Yinru couldn't sit still. Although she closed her eyes, she could hear clearly that Qin Yuru had been led to the outer room. Is it really Miss Qin? But it has been so many years, and first Miss Qin is now the young madam of Duke Yong. She has nothing to do with our Mississippi. Why did she still do this kind of thing? Chu Lu looked at Yu Jie in confusion and seemed to be seeking support. Yu Jie was also at a loss. She looked at Chu Lu, Shuqi, and finally fixed her eyes on Xiao Yinru. She fought hard to marry into Duke Yong's mansion, but found that not only did she not live a good life, but her life was getting worse and worse. Not to mention that she had no money to use. Di Yen took concubines one after another. She suffered from a bad reputation when marrying into Duke Yong's mansion, but she could not say anything, which made her hate her. Her mother-in-law not only did not help her, but also tried hard to protect her son. She said that she could marry into Duke Yong's mansion for the sake of old madam and asked her to be the young madam of Duke Yong's mansion. If she was not obedient, she might not even be the young madam of Duke Yong's mansion. In the past 2 years, Qin Yuru had lived an extremely depressed life. Even if she went to talk to her maternal grandma, who loved her dearly, about the concubines, her maternal grandma just asked her to keep quiet. Only then did she find that her maternal grandma loved Di Yen the most instead of her. Her maternal grandma felt extremely guilty about marrying her into Duke Yong's mansion. She agreed to bring concubines into Duke Yong's mansion as soon as Qin Yuru mentioned it, and she wanted to make it up to Di Yen. She had a very hard time in Duke Yong's mansion. After hearing Qi Rongji's words, she felt that even if something happened to Xiao Wanru, it was an accident and she had nothing to do with it. Now, after being reminded by her maternal grandma, she knew that if it happened to her, Duke Yong's mansion would not protect her, and she would probably live a more miserable life. Nothing could happen to her anymore. Absolutely not. She clenched her sleeves with her fingers and continued to listen to the conversation inside. She must find out Xiao Yenru's fault and put the blame on Xiao Yenru. It was Xiao Yenru who instigated her to do it. Why could Xiao Yenru show that she was on good terms with her sister while she was about to be trampled into the mud? This time, Qin Yuru really realized that she and Xiao Wanru were no longer sisters of equal status in the past. At that time, even if something happened to Xiao Wanru, she would be fine. But now, Xiao Wanru was the granddaughter of Great Elder Princess, and she was far from being in a position to be equal to Xiao Wanru. If something happened to Xiao Wanru, she was afraid that she would have to pay with her life. She was unwilling to accept it. "First Miss, are you really willing to avenge my master?" With tears falling from her eyes, Yujie looked at Xiao Yinru excitedly. "Of course. No matter how young Madam of Duke Yong quibbles, I will definitely make her pay for fifth sister's death." Xiao Yinru said. There were only her, Shuqi, and Xiao Wanru's two maids in the room, so she said some words very naturally. After all, such words couldn't be leaked out, or even if they were leaked out, she could deny it. Could the words of the two maids refute her words? But now, she had to win the trust of the two maids, so that she could go forward to feel Xiao Wanru's pulse in person and make sure of Xiao Wanru's condition. Xiao Yinru had read a lot of books and was involved in many aspects. She knew a little about this kind of simple pulse feeling. Although she might not be able to find out the cause of Xiao Wanru's illness, she could still distinguish whether it was good or bad. "First Miss?" Chu Lu seemed to want to say something, but Shuqi became impatient and said, "Why are you two still talking here? My master is also worried about the 5th Mississippi. As for the young madam of Duke Yong's mansion who hurt the 5th Miss, you don't have to worry at all. First Miss will definitely make her pay for 5th Miss's death." "Will it really happen?" Yujie was pleasantly surprised. She looked at Xiao Yinru but didn't look at Shuqi, as if begging Xiao Yinru to give her another guarantee. "Of course she will. Duke Xing's mansion will seek justice from Duke Yong's mansion even with all its power. You can rest assured." Xiao Yinru had to promise again. Seeing that the two maids looked restless, she said more and more seriously, "Thank you, First Miss." The two maids looked at each other and bowed deeply to Xiao Yinru excitedly. "Don't thank me. You are my 5th sister and the 5th Miss of Duke Xing's mansion. How can the young madam of Duke Yong's mansion compare with you?" Xiao Yinru rarely said such harsh words, especially in front of others. But at this time, in order to win the trust of the two maids, she said it casually. Shuqi had always been the best at cooperating with Xiao Yinru. If Xiao Yinru said 1 or 2 points, she could say 5 or 6 points. Now Xiao Yinru said 5 or 6 points, so she could say full marks. After hearing Xiao Yinru's words, she immediately nodded and added, "The young madam of Duke Xing's mansion is shameless. At that time, she not only seduced Prince Cheng, but also came to our mansion to pretend to be the young madam of Duke Xing's mansion after being rejected by Prince Cheng. She doesn't know what a cheap woman she is. Now she dares to hurt the 5th Mississippi. She is really cheap and vicious. When we go back, ask old madam to send someone to the Ministry of Justice. We must arrest this vicious and cheap woman and send her to the Ministry of Justice. Then we will parade her in the street and behead her." As soon as she finished speaking, the door of the inner room was kicked open. Chapter 612. Xiao Yinru, how you? You instigated me to do it, and now you are speaking ill of me and putting all the blame on me. You bitch, I'll beat you to death. Qin Yuru appeared at the door with a fierce and murderous look on her face. When she saw clearly the people in the inner room, she directly pounced on Xiao Yinru. Chu Lu and Yujie took 2 steps back and leaned against the bed to protect Xiao Wanru. They were so nervous that they knocked down the high gauze curtain. The gauze curtain fell down and covered Xiao Wanru's upper body, so that she could open her eyes and watch the farce outside through the gauze curtain. She brought the two of them together just for today's show. When Xiao Yinru saw Qin Yuru rushing over with a fierce look in her eyes, she had a bad feeling and took a step back nervously. In the past, she seldom made enemies with others on the surface and had always been generous and decent in front of others. She had never seen anyone rush over recklessly like Qin Yuru. Shuqi reacted quickly and rushed forward to stop Qin Yuru. However, Qin Yuru was so angry that she pushed Shuqi away and directly attacked Xiao Yinru behind her. Shuqi still wanted to stand up to protect Xiao Yinru, but Mei Shui, who was behind Qin Yuru, grabbed her, slapped her hard twice, and immediately knocked her out. Compared with Shuqi, Mei Shui had always been very strong. When she was in Jiangzhou, she often acted arrogantly with Qin Yuru. However, after entering the capital city, she was very unhappy, so she became more and more weak. However, she had heard from outside just now that if it hadn't been for the first Miss Xiao in front of her, her madam would have been in trouble. If something happened to her madam, she would not be able to live either. At this moment, just like Qin Yuru, she was also bold and had no time to care about other things. When she entered the room just now, her madam also told her to beat Xiao Yanru's people hard. Of course, she wouldn't be polite at this time. Shuqi was a little dizzy after being slapped. She shook her head and suddenly heard her master's sharp cry. She looked back in a hurry and saw Qin Yuru slapping her master several times and pulling her master's hair hard. She was so anxious that she wanted to stand up and help Xiao Yanru. However, Mei Shui didn't let her go either. She also pulled her master's hair and slapped her. Shuqi came to her senses and fought with Mei Shui. For a moment, the two maids were in a mess. After being slapped several times, Xiao Yanru had no time to care about her appearance. She resisted desperately and screamed. Chu Lu and Yu Jie seemed to be scared out of their wits. They stared blankly at them for a while before Chu Lu rushed out and shouted, "Help! Help!" They had made a lot of noise, which had alerted several Imperial physicians who were waiting on the side. These Imperial physicians were all invited from the Imperial Palace by Ru and Great Elder Princess. They had been confused by Xiao Wanru's coma and were thinking hard about how to wake up the fifth Miss Xiao. But now they were stunned when they heard the shrill scream of a woman coming from the main room. They came to them and they away with of they of with. And when they when they and they who and of them of they of who they. When they came out of the Imperial Palace to treat the fifth Miss Xiao, the Empress Dowager had specially told them to cure the fifth Miss Xiao. Otherwise, they would be punished. They didn't know what had happened in the main room. They were afraid that the fifth Miss Xiao's life was in danger, so they didn't dare to stay and directly rushed in. When they got in and saw the scene in front of them, they were all stunned. The two maids were hitting each other, and the two masters were also hitting each other. By this time, their faces had already been slapped a few times and scratched a few times. The only one who could stop the current situation was the fifth Miss Xiao, who was lying on the bed. However, she was still in a coma now, so they couldn't do anything even if they wanted to. "Xiao Yanru, you bitch. It's obvious that you asked Qi Rongji to send me a message, saying that you have a way to deal with Xiao Wanru and asked me to ask Xiao Wanru to go down the mountain. I thought you really cared about us and wanted to help me reconcile with my sister. So you deliberately used my grandma's illness to talk about it. It turns out that you are the most despicable ones." Seeing that someone came, Qin Yuru grabbed Xiao Yanru's hair and slapped Xiao Yanru's face hard with the other hand. Of course, these words were taught to her by old madam of Duke Yong's mansion. She didn't expect to meet Xiao Yanru and just asked her to explain things to Great Elder Princess and Xiao Wanru. Unexpectedly, she didn't see Great Elder Princess and even Xiao Wanru was in a coma. Now seeing the Imperial physician appear, she immediately said these words. All the Imperial physicians were from the Imperial Palace. As long as she said these words, Xiao Yanru couldn't deny it even if she wanted to. "You are talking nonsense? I don't know anything." Xiao Yanru was very scheming. In the past, she had buried her viciousness deep in her heart and had never been beaten like this. Moreover, she didn't expect that there would be a miss from an aristocratic family like Qin Yuru who came up to hit her recklessly. She was beaten painfully, but she knew that she couldn't admit it at this time. "I am talking nonsense? Xiao Yanru, you don't want my sister to return to your Duke Xing's mansion because your Duke Xing's mansion wants to occupy the position of the heir of my second sister's father. Your Duke Xing's mansion should have been inherited by Sister Wanru's younger brother, but your second branch occupies the position and refuses to give it up. This time, you get rid of Sister Wanru first, and then her younger brother. Your second branch of Duke Xing's mansion is really good at scheming." Qin Yuru gnashed her teeth and said, what she heard outside just now had made her want to beat Xiao Yanru to death. She was in a difficult situation, but Xiao Yanru, the bitch, came up with a way to push her into such a trap. How could she spare her? While fighting with Xiao Yanru desperately, She said all the words that old madam of Duke Yong's mansion taught her. Xiao Wanru, who was lying on the bed, turned her body slightly and looked at Qin Yuru. She hadn't seen Qin Yuru for more than 2 years. It seemed that Qin Yuru had made some progress now. Under the guidance of old madam of Duke Yong's mansion, Qin Yuru actually knew how to talk about this matter in front of several imperial physicians at this time and made Xiao Yenru unable to finish her words. In this case, Xiao Yenru couldn't defeat Qin Yuru. Let go of me. You are talking nonsense. Xiao Yenru was so dizzy that she didn't hear Qin Yuru's words at all. But she also knew that Qin Yuru said something bad, so she scolded loudly and pulled Qin Yuru's hand. All of you stop. A stern shout came from the door. An great elder princess, who got the news, appeared at the door of the room with several madams. Seeing everything inside, she trembled with anger and ordered servants to separate the two people. Several old maids came over and forcefully pulled the two people who were entangled in the fight apart. Looking at the current situation, the two people's clothes were disheveled, and their hair was messy. A few strands of hair had been torn off on the ground. Their faces were even worse. Both of them had black and blue noses and swollen faces, and scratches could be seen on their faces. Although the scratches were not very deep, they were really disgraceful. They didn't look like misses from aristocratic families at all. They were no different from shrews on the street. After the two masters were separated, the two servant girls were naturally separated with bruised noses and swollen faces. Great elder princess, what happened to Sister Wanru really has nothing to do with me. Please help me. I followed Xiao Yenru's words, which Qi Rongji asked Xiao Yenru to pass on. She said that she could help us reconcile and asked me to invite Sister Wanru to come down with the excuse of Grandma's illness. I was young and ignorant in the past, so I kept a distance from Sister Wanru. Now I especially want to make friends with Sister Wanru, but I was used by Xiao Yenru. Qin Yuru threw herself in front of Great Elder Princess and cried loudly, ignoring the scratches on her face. These were all taught by old madam of Duke Yong early. She had planned to cry directly when she met Great Elder Princess, but she didn't expect to meet Great Elder Princess until now. Although Qin Yuru had disappeared from the circle of noble ladies in the capital for so long, what she had done at that time was so appalling that there were still people who would inquire about her from time to time after more than 2 years, and they also knew that she was living a bad life in Duke Yong's mansion. Her words confirmed that she had lived a bad life. In this case, she should indeed reconcile with her former sister. After all, Xiao Wanru was not an ordinary Mississippi. Her words sounded very reasonable. There was indeed someone behind her. Great Elder Princess, she is obviously talking nonsense. Even if Qi Rongji has an agreement with her, it has nothing to do with me. I didn't say anything to her. How could she frame me? I was very anxious when something happened to my fifth sister, so I came to see her. I didn't expect to meet this crazy woman. Please uphold justice for me, Great Elder Princess. Xiao Yenru pulled herself together and forcibly controlled her emotions. She also walked to Great Elder Princess, knelt down and argued, "What happened in Qin's mansion has nothing to do with me. I don't know what the young madam of Duke Yong has done to me." "I have done to you?" First, Miss Xiao, the second branch of Duke Xing's mansion has always been very concerned about the position of heir of Duke Xing, hasn't it? In this case, it naturally won't let the first branch and Sister Wanru have a good life. You deceived Sister Wanru to go down the mountain with the excuse that I was eager to make friends with Sister Wanru. Now you want to hurt her. You deserve to die. Qin Yuru reached out to point at Xiao Yenru and scolded loudly. When she got angry, she reached out to hit Xiao Yenru. Fortunately, the people around Great Elder Princess stopped her. Great Elder Princess looked at them with a cold face and seemed to be unable to make a judgment for a moment. Finally, she waved her hand and said tiredly, "You can go back. This matter will be investigated by the officials of the Ministry of Justice. The officials of the Ministry of Justice should be able to find out who wants to hurt Zhuozhuo. As for the future, don't come here. Zhuozhuo hasn't woken up yet, but you two can fight in front of her bed. Who cares about her?" Qin Yuru still wanted to say something, but she had been helped up by an old maid and pulled out. Xiao Yinru was also pulled up by the people of Great Elder Princess's mansion. They were led out by their respective old maids, leaving a few madams who came with Great Elder Princess and shook their heads secretly. Originally, they all thought that the first miss of Duke Xing's mansion was a good person, but now they felt that this first miss was really a schemer. Young Madam of Duke Yong's mansion didn't live a good life in Duke Yong's mansion. At this time, it was very possible that she wanted to make friends with her former sister. And Duke Xing's mansion seemed to intend to pass the title of Duke Xing's mansion to the second branch. If this was true, the first Miss Xiao was really not clean. Or not only the first Miss Xiao, but also Duke Xing's mansion was not clean. But the specific situation depended on the results of the Ministry of Justice's investigation. So, noisy! A low voice suddenly came from the bed, breaking the strange silence in the room. Chapter 613. Qin Yuru and Xiao Yinru were led to the place where the carriage was parked. The two old maids who led the way bowed to the two misses and stepped aside. When Xiao Yinru was about to get into the carriage with Shuqi's help, Qin Yuru suddenly rushed over from behind and grabbed Xiao Yinru's clothes. Xiao Yinru lost her balance and fell to the ground. Shuqi wanted to stop her, but it was too late. The two of them fell heavily to the ground together. Xiao Yinru, the first beauty in the capital? Look at you now. Do you really think that you are the first noble lady in the capital? Qin Yuru sneered, raised her head, and sneered. You have schemed against me again and again. Your heart is so vicious that it makes one's hair stand on end. Tear off your fake face and see who will still believe you. You have both looks and talent. After saying that, she turned around and got into her carriage. The coachman whipped away. Shuqi tried hard to help Xiao Yinru up. She was so angry that her face turned livid and her eyes fell on Qin Yuru's carriage. Let's go. Xiao Yinru held Shuqi's hand and said sternly. She held Shuqi's hand and got into the carriage. Seeing the two carriages leave one after another, the two old maids who led the way went back to report. Is it the Changxing grass that can drive horses crazy? In the Imperial study, the emperor looked gloomy and cold. His eyes fell on a few strands of grass on his desk. The broken grass roots showed obvious traces of being crushed. Although they had been wiped, there were still traces of mud on them. On the other side, there was a box with a few strands of grass in it. The few strands of grass were intact without any damage. At first glance, it was obvious that they had been carefully stored. Even though the two kinds of grass were in different conditions, it could still be seen that they were the same species. Your Majesty, they are indeed the same kind of grass, Changxing grass. I have checked that this kind of grass comes from the Su state. The Su state is far away at the southern border. There is miasma all year round. It is difficult for people who are not local to go deep into it. This kind of Changxing grass grows in the dense miasma, so it is difficult for local people to collect it. Li Shuiqing, the minister of the Ministry of Justice, reported all the information he had found to the emperor. The emperor fell silent for a while, looked at the crushed grass stems and frowned tightly. He had thought that it was just a matter of the inner court, but he didn't expect that it was related to the previous dynasty. Of course, he knew that there had been an accident in the Yuhui nunnery. When he went to the Empress Dowager's palace before, the Empress Dowager had specially mentioned it to him. The reason why she mentioned it was that it was related to the granddaughter of and Great Elder Princess. According to the Empress Dowager, the granddaughter was engaged to Chu Luchen. The Empress Dowagers promised would announce it when there was a rite. Now that this woman had an accident, Empress Dowager was afraid that Chu Luchen would be involved, so she reported it to the emperor first. Fu Iman, He Shua Jinyen and Yana. That would not be a simple matter. It was said that the Great Elder Princess had also found a few, but she did not know, so until now, she had not found out that these few strands of grass were the culprits that caused the horse to rush down the cliff. It would be troublesome if the Great Elder Princess brought this matter to the emperor. It might even be known to the whole world. Then Great Elder Princess, try to get the grass back. The emperor frowned and said. He couldn't let Great Elder Princess keep the grass, otherwise, it would be troublesome. I know. When I entered the palace, I sent someone from the Ministry of Justice to see Ru and Great Elder Princess, hoping to get the grass found at the scene back from her, Li Shuiqing said. He had thought about it before he came. He knew that he couldn't let Ru and Great Elder Princess know about it and tell her. The emperor nodded to show his satisfaction. Then he turned his eyes to the several Changxing grasses in the box. They were kept in the warehouse, but there were a few more when they were registered in the warehouse, which meant that someone had secretly taken away the Changxing grasses. These Changxing grasses were sent to the capital along with some of the gifts from the Su kingdom, and then they were placed in the warehouse. No one paid attention to these grasses, and they had been left there for many years. It was difficult to find them now. After so many years, they had come into contact with many people, whether they were transferred or left behind. Although the warehouse could not be entered casually, it was not easy to find them now. Your Majesty, I've compiled a list of the people who are most likely to have come in contact with or know about these Changxing grasses over the years. Your Majesty, please have a look. Minister Li took out a list from his sleeve and presented it to the emperor. Durong came down to take it and then presented it to the emperor. The emperor looked at the names carefully one by one and frowned more and more. In fact, he couldn't see who was most likely to have done it. None of the names on the list belonged to first-rank or second-rank officials. Most of the time, they were their subordinates and subordinates. But in fact, this was easy to understand. Even if they really wanted to, they wouldn't do it themselves. Bringing people in and letting others take it was the best way. In this way, even if the matter was exposed, it had nothing to do with them. Those who could become first-grade or second-grade officials were all shrewd people. How could they put themselves in danger so easily? Go and check them one by one. Don't make too much noise. After reading the list, the emperor put down the list in his hand and said sternly, how could they not be angry when they secretly took away the things offered by other countries under his nose without being found out for so many years? Yes, Your Majesty. Minister Li nodded, but then he said with some hesitation, how should we deal with the car accident? Hide the matter of the Changxing grasses. The emperor paused for a moment and also hesitated. If they really hid the matter of the Changxing grasses, the car accident would really be an accident. Thinking of Chu Liuqin's character, the emperor felt a headache. He reached out and rubbed his forehead. If he really gave such an order, it would be difficult to explain to Chu Liuqin. The Empress Dowager meant that Chu Liuqin still had some affection for the granddaughter of and Great Elder Princess, and he had never fallen in love with a woman for so many years. If he was really dissatisfied, he was a stubborn child. Your Majesty, I heard that this matter has also caused a lot of noise outside. Durong lowered his voice to remind the emperor. As the emperor's henchman, he certainly knew what the emperor meant. Seeing the emperor's worried face, he deliberately mentioned the rumors outside, some of which he had learned from the imperial physician who had returned to the palace. What do you mean? The emperor asked. Your Excellency Li, please say it. Durong looked at the minister of the Ministry of Justice with a smile and gestured with his hand. He was just reminding the emperor. Of course, Li Shuiqing, the minister of the Ministry of Justice, should officially report the matter. A eunuch should have the consciousness of being a eunuch, which was also the main reason why Durong had been a eunuch holding a pen and writing brush until now. If a eunuch didn't recognize his identity and interfered in the affairs of the imperial court, even if the officials didn't dare to say anything, the emperor would not tolerate him. Your Majesty, there are two families who have different opinions now. One of them is Duke Yong's mansion. Before 5th Miss Xiao returned to the family, the eldest daughter of Ningyuan Army General's mansion, who is now young madam of Duke Yong's mansion, is her eldest sister. At that time, young madam and Madam D, the wife of Ningyuan Army General, plotted against 5th Miss Xiao several times. Once, they even sent people to steal 5th Miss Xiao with the method of knocking her out and then selling her to that dirty place. There has always been resentment between them, and this time they went down the mountain because Qin's mansion said that old Madam Qin was seriously ill and deceived 5th Miss Xiao to go down the mountain. Everyone said that it was young madam of Duke Xing's mansion who did this to 5th Miss Xiao. But there is another saying that it was the second branch of Duke Xing's mansion who did this. It is said that the second branch of Duke Xing's mansion is afraid of the sister and brother of the first branch, so this time they reached out. The old maid sent by Qin's mansion has obviously contacted the people of Duke Xing's mansion. Minister Li reported all the news he had received to the emperor. Both families had grudges against 5th Miss Xiao. On the surface, the old maid sent to lure 5th Miss Xiao down the mountain was a member of Qin's mansion. But after the interrogation, it was found that she had also contacted the people of Duke Xing's mansion. But she couldn't tell who specifically. She only said that it was an old maid and a servant girl, and there was nothing special about them. There were so many servants in Duke Xing's mansion. Not to mention how many servants there were in the mansion, it was even more difficult to find out the servants in other places and farms. Some of them had been freed from slavery long ago and were set free. If there were no special characteristics, it was really impossible to find anything. Your Majesty, when several imperial physicians of the Imperial Institute of Medicine came back, they said that they saw a farce. In Great Elder Princess's mansion, young Madam of Duke Yong beat 1st Miss Xiao and said that 1st Miss Xiao asked the adopted daughter in their mansion to deceive young Madam of Duke Yong into inviting 5th Miss Xiao down the mountain. Durong interrupted with a smile. This kind of words could be regarded as gossip. Whether it was the imperial physicians and Great Elder Princess, young Madam of Duke Yong's mansion, or the 1st Miss of Duke Xing, none of them were from the imperial court, so it was not out of line for him to say this. Did they fight in Great Elder Princess's mansion? The emperor said unhappily. Yes, I heard that they beat her very badly. I guess that she can't show her face in the next few days. She even woke up the unconscious 5th Miss Xiao. It can be seen that she did something big, Durong said with a smile. It was really improper for the two misses from aristocratic families to fight like this. Not only the emperor felt disdainful, but even Minister Li of the Ministry of Justice felt that it was really impolite. It was said that the 1st Miss Xiao was both beautiful and talented. It seemed that her reputation was fake, and she was a schemer. Minister Li was from the Ministry of Justice. He had seen a lot of people and encountered a lot of bad cases. He had also seen a lot of vicious people. If what young Madam of Duke Yong's mansion said was true, the 1st Miss Xiao was not only scheming but also very vicious. Start with the two of them and avoid the Changxing grass. The emperor made a decision in his heart and gave an order. If we find out that it was them, the minister of the Ministry of Justice said uneasily. It meant not only the two misses from aristocratic families, but also the forces behind them. Chapter 6:14. No matter who did it, after finding out who did it, ask her to apologize to Bu in Great Elder Princess's mansion. The emperor said with a sullen face. But what if I accidentally slip when going down the mountain? The Minister of Justice couldn't grasp the emperor's meaning, so he asked another question. At this time, you want to lead her down the mountain. It has been raining for a few days, the mountain road is slippery, and there is no trace at night. It is the most likely that something will happen, and if something happens, it will not be found out. The emperor coldly said, Yes, Your Majesty, I will arrange it right away. Minister Li had already understood the emperor's meaning. The matter of the Changxing grass couldn't be disclosed and could only be investigated secretly. There were a lot of things related to it, and it might even cause a shock in the imperial court. Therefore, this matter couldn't be disclosed and could only be investigated from other aspects. According to the emperor's intention, of course, it was not an accident. Someone must come out to take responsibility. Whether it was the young Madam of Duke Yong or the 1st Miss of Duke Xing's mansion, there must be someone with bad intentions who deliberately led 5th Miss Xiao down the mountain at that time in order to make 5th Miss Xiao have an accident. His evil intentions should be punished. But because they didn't succeed in the end, and 5th Miss Xiao had woken up now, she should be fine, so there was no need to pay with her life. However, if a woman from an aristocratic family really had such a reputation, especially one that meant harming lives, then her life would really be ruined. After coming out of the imperial study, Minister Li's brows were furrowed so tightly that they could almost squeeze a fly to death. Since they had to investigate it, they couldn't do it openly. Even if they couldn't do it openly, they had to have a result. However, it was also related to Duke Xing's mansion and Duke Yong's mansion. Both of these mansions were noble. Duke Yong's mansion had declined, so it couldn't be compared with Duke Xing's mansion. But after all, an aristocratic family must have some background. As he thought about it, he went out, but when he turned the corner he almost bumped into someone. Seeing the handsome but sickly face in front of him, Minister Li hurriedly took 2 steps back and held the tree on the side to prevent himself from falling. The person in front of him wasn't someone he could casually knock into. Even if he didn't knock into the person, something might happen to him, not to mention that he was using so much force to knock into the person. "Lord Li, why are you in such a hurry?" Chu Luchen said gently. His eyes were as clear as water, and his black hair was tied up with a white jade crown, which made him look even more handsome. "Your Highness Prince Qin, I just came back from His Majesty's place." Minister Li secretly wiped his sweat and said, secretly glad that he was nimble, and quickly stopped. "Is it because of what happened in the Yuhui nunnery?" The smile on Chu Liuchen's face disappeared, and he asked directly. Actually, it's about this matter." Minister Li hesitated for a moment and said, since this matter still had to be investigated, he was not afraid of people asking openly. "Did someone secretly try to hurt my cousin?" Chu Luchen raised his eyebrows and asked. "Cousin?" Minister Li didn't remember who Chu Luchen was talking about and looked at Chu Luchen in surprise. Perhaps sensing Minister Li's doubts, Chu Luchen specially explained, "She is the granddaughter of and great elder princess and the 5th miss of Duke Xing's mansion. She is my cousin, and we were familiar with each other in the past." Was she secretly set up by someone? Was he talking about the 5th Miss Xiao? Minister Li thought that the two of them should not have any contact. As soon as the 5th Miss Xiao returned to her family, she was sent to the Yuhui nunnery to cultivate in seclusion, while the 5th Miss Xiao was basically lying in bed. Of course, this was just what he thought in his heart. Of course, he would not be so ignorant to inquire about it so clearly. "I'm still investigating this matter. Your Excellency Li, please take care of it. Although my cousin has just returned to her family not long ago, I was also indebted to her hospitality when I went to Jiangzhou that day. Later, when I was at the gate of the palace, the horse went crazy and almost killed me. It can be regarded as a connection." Chu Luchen said with emotion, and then added gently, "If you have any conclusion, I hope you can inform me." Sure. Minister Li nodded repeatedly. Chu Luchen coughed twice in a low voice and said with a sick face, "I'm going to see Imperial grandmother, so I can't talk with you anymore." "Your Highness, please help yourself." Minister Li hurriedly stepped aside, bowed to Chu Luchen, and then watched Chu Luchen leave slowly. Looking at his back and thinking carefully for a while, Minister Li's face suddenly changed greatly. He turned around in a hurry and hurried to the Emperor's Imperial study. When he arrived at the Imperial study, he asked the little eunuch who was guarding at the door to go in and report. After a while, the chief eunuch Dikang came out. When he saw Minister Li, he laughed and said, "Minister, why did you come back? Could it be that he had discovered something important?" "Your Excellency Li, please. The Emperor is waiting for you inside." Of course, Durong's question did not really need Minister Li's answer. It was just a joke. In the past, Minister Li would definitely joke with Durong. The Emperor's trusted eunuch could not be offended. If he could get on good terms with him, it would be a great blessing. But now, Minister Li was not in the mood at all. He cupped his hands to Durong as a salute, lifted the corner of his robe and hurried in. Durong followed him into the Imperial study. Although the smile on his face remained unchanged, his eyes were a little deeper. After entering the door, he saw that Minister Li knelt in front of the Emperor again. He carefully stood beside the Emperor, reached out to pour a cup of tea for the Emperor, and then stepped aside with his hands hanging on his shoulders. "Minister Li, why did you come back?" The Emperor put down the red brush pen in his hand and asked in surprise. Minister Li had gone out for too short a time, and he should not have gone far. Why did he come back? Could it be that there was a new clue in the case just now? Of course, the so-called new clue in the Emperor's mind was not just the fight between women. "Your Majesty, do you still remember what happened to Prince Qin at the gate of the palace that day?" Minister Li's face was pale, and his back was sweating. This was no longer a simple matter of Changxing grass. At the gate of the palace, Prince Qin almost had an accident? The emperor narrowed his eyes and asked after thinking for a while. Yes, at that time, it was caused by a horse of Prince Zhou's mansion. First, it hit a miss, and then the miss was saved by Prince Qin. But in the end, it was Prince Qin who had an accident. At that time, Prince Qin almost. Minister Li gritted his teeth, connected what he had thought of before, and reported it all to the emperor. By the time he finished speaking, his back was already wet with sweat. The fight between the princes had always been something that couldn't be said or touched. But since he had thought of it, he naturally had to say it. Otherwise, he would be guilty again. Do you mean that the horse might also have an accident because of the Changxing grass? The emperor immediately understood what he meant, and his face became extremely ugly. I think it's very possible, but this matter may not necessarily be done by Prince Zhou's people. Maybe someone used Prince Zhou to deal with Prince Qin. Minister Li's forehead was covered with sweat as he spoke, and in the end he still couldn't go on. Evil creature. The emperor's hand slammed heavily on the imperial desk. Durong lowered his head more and more, and didn't dare to move. The other eunuchs were even like quails, and their heads were almost lowered to the ground. None of them wanted to hear more about this kind of thing, because they would die if they heard too much. The emperor's fight had never been a secret that others could listen to at will. Your Majesty, go and check the previous coachman. Find out all the people around him who had contacted him and those who might have contacted him. Also, find out whether the people on the list in your hand have contacted them. The emperor said angrily. Yes, I'll check it right away. After kowtowing to the emperor, Minister Li hurriedly stood up and retreated. When he retreated to the threshold, he turned around and went out. He stood outside the door for a while, calmed himself down, and then shook his head bitterly. As the Minister of the Ministry of Justice, although he had handled many cases, he was most unwilling to handle this kind of case. If he was not careful, he might cause a big trouble. However, he was the emperor's man, so he should be loyal. He would do whatever the emperor ordered him to do. After thinking it through, Minister Li turned around and strode out. This time, he didn't mean to stop at all. He hurried to the gate of the palace, as if there were some scourges and fierce beasts chasing after him. Xiao Wenru was lying on the couch. Her black hair was just casually draped over her shoulders. She had just washed it, and Yu Jie had dried it for her just now. There was still a little bit of moisture in it, but she didn't want to tie it up immediately. Since there were no outsiders here, she leaned against the screen and listened to the words of the old maid sent by Duke Xing's mansion. The screen was placed in front of her couch, which happened to block her in front of the couch. The old maid sent by Duke Xing's mansion was good at talking. She first talked for a while about how old Madame missed her and how Madame of Duke Xing cared about her. Then she said that although the first miss met the unreasonable young Madame of Duke Yong's mansion here, she still cared about her injury and was afraid that there was something wrong with her injury, so she specially sent her to ask about it. After talking for a long time, she finally came to the purpose of her visit. Fifth miss, if you feel better, old Madam means that you'd better go back to the mansion to recuperate. Old Madam has invited several famous doctors to wait for you in the mansion. We can't let your injury leave any sequelae. After saying that, the old maid carefully listened to the sound inside. She didn't know how the fifth miss was injured. In fact, she came to inquire about the news today, but she couldn't see anything because of the screen. She could only sense the fifth miss's condition by a little sound. Is there a place for me to stay in the mansion? The voice inside was very weak, and it seemed that she couldn't speak coherently in one breath. It could be seen that she was really in a bad condition. Fifth miss, don't worry. The courtyard has been prepared long ago, and everything inside is ready. You can live in it immediately after you go back. The old maid strained her ears to listen to Xiao Wenru's words. After hearing it clearly, she answered with a smile. The courtyard was really ready. Ever since First Miss came back, Madam had asked everyone in the mansion to help. In just one night, the courtyard was ready. Of course, it was impossible to find a few particularly good things. Madam meant to put things that she didn't intend to put in good things in the courtyard. Chapter 6:15. At first glance, it seemed that the courtyard was really ready. Basically, it could be lived in. If some small details were not dealt with, it could be said that things were a little rushed. Xiao Wanru originally planned to go down the mountain for a period of time, so it was reasonable that the courtyard was not properly tidied up at this time. "I'm afraid I can't move for the time being," Xiao Wanru said weakly. Her voice was so weak that it could almost be heard, especially through the screen. Old Madam said that it's okay. She asked the servants to carry the fifth miss out. "The carriage is ready. It's padded with high-quality cotton and covered with soft blankets. The wheels are also wrapped with thick cotton cloth. The fifth miss will not feel the jolt at all when she lies in the carriage, nor will she hurt her body." The old maid heard Xiao Wanru's words clearly and answered in a hurry. "What do you mean by moving away? Can't I live here? Zhuozhua is still in poor health. Go back and report to your old madam that I said that she can't move away at this time." A cold snort came from the door. An great elder princess, dressed in gorgeous clothes, came in with a few servant girls and old maids. Her sharp eyes fell on the old maid of Duke Xing's mansion, which made the old maid tremble and kneel down to greet her. Needless to say, the person in front of her was an great elder princess. "Are you from Duke Xing's mansion?" Great elder princess said coldly. "I was sent by old madam to pick up our fifth miss." Although the old maid was afraid, she still managed to finish her words. "Zhuozhua is injured like this, but you still come to pick her up. Do you not take Zhuozhua's health seriously at all?" The great elder princess looked down at the old maid with a sneer and said, "Go back and report to your old madam that I will keep her here." "Yes, I will go back and report to our old madam." The old maid did not dare to argue. She kowtowed to and great elder princess again, got up and walked out without looking back. Of course, old madam meant that if the fifth miss was brought back, she would be rewarded heavily. However, at present, and great elder princess was not someone she could control. Not to mention her, even old madam was weak in front of this great elder princess. She did not dare to offend great elder princess. It was a small matter if he didn't get the reward, but if he lost his life because of this, he would really be finished. The old maid of Duke Xing's mansion hurried back. And great elder princess turned behind the screen and looked at Xiao Wanru, who was lying on the couch. Although she was a little lazy, she was still in good spirits. She reached out to touch Xiao Wanru's forehead with a smile and said, "Why did you let this person in? How dare an old maid come here to lobby? Is there no one in Duke Xing's mansion?" Duke Xing's mansion really took her seriously. After such a big thing happened, they only sent a junior and a servant to have a look. Neither old madam nor madam of Duke Xing came. It could be seen how they treated their granddaughter coldly. Thinking of this, and great elder princess thought of her poor daughter. If they treated their granddaughter like this, who was also their blood relative, they would naturally treat their own daughter even worse. They shouldn't have allowed their daughter to marry into such a mansion. "Grandmother, they can't come even if they want to." Seeing that and great elder princess's eyes were slightly red, Xiao Tianzi knew that she thought of something sad again. He sat up straight, reached out to hold and great elder princess's hand and pulled her to sit down affectionately. She sat up on the couch on her knees, poured a cup of tea on the table beside her, held it in front of and great elder princess, and said sweetly, "Grandmother, don't be sad. It's not so easy for Duke Xing's mansion to get away this time." Seeing Xiao Wanru's obedient and considerate look, great elder princess felt sour and bitter in her heart. Her daughter used to be so obedient and sensible. Even if she only had one daughter, she could rely on her daughter for survival. But in the end, the charming daughter she had raised died soon after giving birth to her little grandson. Even her granddaughter had been stranded in a foreign place and was almost replaced by someone else. Of course, it was also because of the old maid of Duke Xing's mansion. "Zhuozhua, if you need anything, just tell me. I will never let them take advantage of you. Unless I don't want Duke Xing's mansion, they can't take it away." Suppressing the pain in her heart, and great elder princess said in a stern voice, and her originally arrogant face became a little cold and fierce. Her daughter couldn't die in vain. Since her grandson's surname was Xiao, everything of his father belonged to her. Her granddaughter in her hand was very tender. Although her little face was exquisite and beautiful, she was still a child. However, a great elder princess did not look down on her granddaughter. Since she recognized her granddaughter, this little girl had surprised her greatly. But after the surprise, she was happy. Qinghua was too gentle and less decisive in handling things. She had never dared to speculate maliciously about others, but in the end she ended up like this. She couldn't even protect her own child. Her granddaughter was much taller than her daughter at a young age. Thinking of the meaning behind this, and great elder princess felt sad again. If it weren't for the fact that no one protected the little child and she had always been treated coldly, how could she have such a cautious and considerate temperament? She reached out to pull Xiao Wanru's body in, touched her black and soft hair, and said, "No matter what you want, I will definitely help you." Her words were not high and vague, but Xiao Wanru understood it all. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she held back. She reached out to pull Ru in great elder princess's hand, raised her watery eyes, and pretended to be relaxed and said, "Grandma, let's take back what Hao deserves this time, okay?" Okay, of course it's okay. Ru in great elder princess nodded again and again. Her red eyes made her less imposing in the past and more kind than usual. She was originally a strong-willed old lady. After her husband died, she only had a daughter. She and her daughter depended on each other for survival. Later, her daughter got married, and a series of events happened. Later, her daughter died, and her only grandson didn't get close to her. Whenever he saw her, he would avoid her like a snake or scorpion. No matter how she persuaded him, he wouldn't come to live with her. Fortunately, she now not only had an obedient grandson, but also a sensible and considerate granddaughter. The position of heir of the duke originally belonged to your father. Later, something happened to your father, and it fell to the second branch. But in fact, your younger brother had been born at that time, and it could be directly passed on to your younger brother. Now your younger brother has grown up. Why can't you give it back? Then great elder princess turned her head slightly and wiped away a tear at the corner of her eye. When she turned back, she was still the tough and proud great elder princess. "Grandma, did you submit a memorial before?" Xiao Wanru took great elder princess's hand and asked with a comforting smile. "Yes, and more than once. I just want everyone to know that the position of heir of the duke belongs to your younger brother, not to the second branch of Duke Xing's mansion." Great elder princess said angrily. In order to prevent the current second branch of Duke Xing's mansion from taking the position of heir of the duke, great elder princess had submitted memorials more than once and also told the Empress Dowager and the Emperor what had happened at that time. If it hadn't been for old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion, her daughter and son-in-law wouldn't have left and then had an accident. Speaking of it, it was all the fault of Duke Xing's mansion. She had lost a daughter and a son-in-law, so she couldn't watch her grandson live a bad life now. Moreover, it was said that the old Duke Xing had also submitted a memorial before his death to confer the title of heir of the duke to his younger grandson. But the emperor said that he hadn't received it. After that, the current Duke Xing became the new Duke Xing. After he inherited the title, the first thing he did was to promote his son to the position of heir of Duke Xing. It was also because of great elder princess's resistance that this matter was delayed again and again until now. "Grandma, let's see how they deal with this matter next." Xiao Wanru took great elder princess's hand and shook it with a comforting smile. There was a trace of deepness in her bright watery eyes. Qin Yuru was not so easy to deal with. Since this matter had started, it would not be so easy to end it. Chu Luchen had said a lot before. Although Xiao Wanru didn't quite understand it, she knew that what she had to do at this time was to keep a low profile. For example, a wounded woman who had lived in the Yuhui nunnery for so many years should naturally be weak and peaceful, and should not make any moves. Qing was scared, crazy before, and now she was also being treated. Of course, it was inconvenient for her to appear in front of others. Chu Luchen asked her to live in great elder princess's mansion these days. He asked her not to intervene in the affairs outside for the time being and not to inquire more about it, especially about Duke Xing's mansion. As for Qin's mansion, she could contact it. The Ministry of Justice had already taken action, and no one knew how many people would secretly intervene in this matter. Xiao Wanru would not do anything at this time. After Chu Luqian intervened in this matter, it would probably become a big deal. Great Elder Princess, old Madam of Qin's mansion came to see cousin Miss. A servant girl reported loudly outside the room. Xiao Wanru's eyes lit up, and she looked at Ru and Great Elder Princess with bright eyes. Okay, let them in, but you have to be careful. You haven't recovered yet. And Great Elder Princess said meaningfully. It was not that she didn't believe in old Madam Qin, but the people brought by old Madam Qin were not necessarily trustworthy. Qin's mansion had also sent people to greet old Madam Qin before, but they were all stopped by Ru and Great Elder Princess. In fact, it was not the best time to see old Madam Qin. However, seeing her granddaughter's watery eyes full of desire, and Great Elder Princess could only give her a few words helplessly. Grandma, don't worry. I know. Xiao Wanru nodded repeatedly. She really wanted to see old Madam Qin. Qin Yuru talked about old Madam Qin's illness, so it must be true. Seeing that her grandma came in person, old Madam Qin's illness should not be so serious. Xiao Wanru was relieved. You. And Great Elder Princess patted her head helplessly and stood up. If she were here, old Madam of Qin's mansion would definitely feel uncomfortable, and she would have to bow to her. Old Madam Qin was also old, and it was said that she was not very healthy. It was better to avoid some things. It seemed that old Madam Qin came here for something. Otherwise, it was impossible for her to come in person when she was in poor health. Chapter 616. Old Madam Qin came in with the help of Nanny Duan. The last time they met was in the Yuhui Nunnery. Old Madam Qin and Shui Ruolin accompanied Xiao Wanru in the Yuhui Nunnery for a few days when they went to the Yuhui Nunnery to offer incense. Now it had been a few months. At first glance, old Madam Qin seemed to have aged a lot. She seemed to be in poor spirits. Xiao Wanru moved her fingers and wanted to sit up, but Yu Jie pressed her hard. She leaned down weakly again and lay on the thick cushion behind her. Grandma, Xiao Wanru said and asked Chu Lu to help old Madam come over. The other old maids and maids who followed old Madam Qin were stopped outside the door. Yu Jie had put a thick cushion on a big chair made of nanmu. Old Madam Qin sat down in the chair and looked very concerned. She looked Xiao Wanru up and down a few times and breathed a sigh of relief when she found that Xiao Wanru was just a little weak and was fine. Your Aunt Shui was going to come, but because Brother Xian was too noisy, she couldn't come. Old Madam explained. Grandma, are you okay? I heard that you are seriously ill. Have you seen a doctor? If you can't cure him, ask Mingqiu Nun to have a look. She knows your condition best. Xiao Wanru said in a low voice with concern. I was indeed ill before. I caught a cold, but it's not a big deal. I just didn't expect this evil creature to go up the mountain to inform you. Old Madam Qin said with her eyes turning red with anger. How could she not know that Qin Yuru had caused such a big trouble and even got involved in the Ministry of Justice? In the past few days, Qin Huaiyong rarely came to her place, and how could old Madam not understand it? Madam Dowager still didn't know that there were many twists and turns in this matter, nor did she think that Xiao Yinru intended to kill Xiao Wanru. She really thought that the accident in Xiao Wanru's carriage was caused by an accident. The mountain road was slippery and she couldn't see clearly in the dark. Now that the Ministry of Justice intervened, this matter was blown out of proportion. Grandma, I'm glad that you are not ill. Xiao Wanru asked again, how is Aunt Shui? Your Aunt Shui is fine. Everything is fine. It's fine as long as you are fine. You almost had an accident, but you are still so worried about me and Ruolin? Madame Dowager sighed softly and looked at Xiao Wanru's beautiful little face. Compared with the past, her face and lips were much lighter. His face was pale, and it was obvious that he had suffered a lot. When she thought of how pitiful this child was, the old madam could not help but feel sad. In fact, this child really had a hard life. Even if he recognized his ancestors and returned to the clan, Duke Xing's mansion didn't like him. He was forced to go to the Yuhui Nunnery to observe filial piety for his deceased parents. If he really loved her, How could he let such a young girl stay in the Yuhui nunnery for more than 2 years? He really let her stay on the mountain for 3 years. The meaning of Duke Xing's mansion was really obvious, which was really unpleasant. Grandma, are you here today for Xiao Yanru? Looking at old grandma's expression, Xiao Wanru didn't embarrass her and said softly, "Yes, I'm here for this evil creature." Old madam said angrily. Since Xiao Wanru brought up the subject, it was much easier for her to say the following words. This evil creature doesn't have a good life in Duke Yong's mansion. Duke Yong's mansion doesn't want her to see many people. Even in the past, the two mansions rarely contacted each other. Now such a thing happened. Speaking of this, Madame Dowager stopped for a moment and really felt ashamed to go on. She knew clearly what had happened when Qin Yuru and Xiao Wanru were in the Qin's mansion. Madame D and Qin Yuru repeatedly couldn't tolerate her. In the end, they even wanted to steal her identity, which was really disgusting. However, she had to consider for the sake of the Qin's mansion. No matter what Xiao Yanru did, she was still the daughter of the Qin's mansion. In the future, there would be Qin Xian who was born by Rulin. If this thing really fell on Xiao Yanru, not only Xiao Yanru would be ruined, but also the Qin's mansion would be implicated. Thinking of her lovely little grandson, old madam felt distressed. How could such a lovely child have such a vicious sister? Not only that, Qin Huayong had been here several times, and he had repeatedly said that this matter would affect his career. Thinking of this, old madam felt suffocated and couldn't even go on. The room suddenly became quiet. Nanny Duan looked at Xiao Wanru's face uneasily and breathed a sigh of relief when she found that there was no anger on her face. Like old madam, she also felt that the Qin's mansion should feel guilty about this matter. Grandma, don't you want Xiao Yanru to take all the blame? Looking at old madam and Nanny Duan's expressions, Xiao Wanru had already understood what they meant, so she immediately picked up the topic in a soft voice. Zhuizhua, I know this makes it difficult for you. It's up to you. If you think she should be punished, you don't have to be soft-hearted. Your Aunt Shui and I are living a good life. Even if Yong loses his official position or is in trouble in his official position, it doesn't matter. Old madam said helplessly, but her words were very sincere, and she did think so. She didn't expect to be rich, nor did she expect to get an honorary title in the future. Now she had brother Xian and had a successor, so she was very satisfied in her heart. Grandma, you don't have to worry. I'm fine. This matter is indeed caused by Xiao Yanru, but if she can prove that this matter really has something to do with Duke Xing's mansion, at least she is just an accident. She came to my mansion that day and said that she wanted to reconcile with me. She asked me to go down the mountain with the excuse that you were sick. Only by having more contact with each other can the past be erased. Xiao Wanru said with a trace of seriousness and sarcasm in her eyes. How could she not know that Xiao Yanru's words were just an excuse? But it happened that she also needed these excuses from her. Duke Xing's mansion was powerful and prosperous, so many things were tightly locked inside, so that she had no way to deal with them at the moment. Since Xiao Yanru had reached out this time, she certainly couldn't let her leave easily. Yuru wants to reconcile with you? Madame Dowager asked in disbelief and looked at Xiao Wanru in astonishment, feeling that these words shouldn't have come out of Xiao Wanru's mouth. Xiao Yanru said so. It should be old madam of Duke Yong's mansion who asked her to say so. Grandma, you don't have to care whether it's true or not. If she can insist that the first miss of Duke Xing's mansion to death, at least she can forget about this matter. I will also ask my maternal grandma to tell the Ministry of Justice that it's not all about Qin Yuru. Xiao Wanru's long eyelashes fluttered a few times and said slowly, this matter was being investigated now, and it was about Xiao Yanru and Qin Yuru. The fight between them in Great Elder Duke's mansion at that time had somehow spread out, so that many people were talking about it now. The Ministry of Justice went to Duke Yong's mansion and Duke Xing's mansion to inquire about it. Both of them were noble aristocratic families, and both of them were ladies of aristocratic families, so they couldn't be summoned to court at will. The Ministry of Justice could only send someone to inquire about it. However, Xiao Yanru had always had a bad reputation, while Xiao Yanru was famous in the capital. Even if the two of them didn't know who was right or wrong now, Such a big fight had made Xiao Yanru's reputation worse. Many people began to doubt whether her reputation was deliberately made up. Hearing Xiao Wanru's words, Madame Dowager was stunned at first, and then she understood. She reached out to hold Xiao Wanru's hand and said with shame and distress in her eyes, "Zhuozhua, I'm sorry." She knew what Xiao Wanru meant. She intended to let Xiao Yanru go. Thinking of Xiao Wanru's previous danger, Madame Dowager just wanted to lock Xiao Yanru up like her mother. It wasn't enough for that evil creature to make such a mess in Qin's mansion. Now that she was locked up, she still didn't stop. After this time, even if Duke Yong's mansion didn't make any response, she had to go to Duke Yong's mansion and have a good talk with Countess Yong about it. It would be better if Xiao Yanru didn't show up in the future, lest she caused any trouble again. Grandma. Xiao Wanru knew that Madame Dowager had understood what she meant, so she comforted her and said, "If you have nothing to do recently, don't go out often. You are still sick now, so don't go out. Rest at home first. When I'm almost recovered, I'll come to visit you." "Okay, I got it. I won't hold you back." Madame Dowager nodded, and the corners of her eyes involuntarily turned sour. Since she was a child, she had doted on this little granddaughter in front of her the most, but now she had to put her in a difficult position. How could she not feel sad? Putting down Xiao Wanru's hand, Madame Dowager helped Nanny Duan to stand up and said, "I'll go back first. It's really inconvenient for me to go out at this time. The Ministry of Justice specially went to Duke Yong's mansion before, and I heard that Duke Xing's mansion also went there. Although it was not a public trial, it can basically be confirmed that this matter has something to do with these two mansions, or one of them." Madame Dowager was also a smart person. At this time, she also figured out a key point. It was not suitable for her to stay at this time. She was indeed not well, and she had to recuperate after going back. If she stayed in Great Elder Princess Mansion for a long time at this time, it would not be good for anyone. At this time, they were in the teeth of the storm, so it was really not the time to talk too much. Xiao Wanru also knew this, so she asked Yu Jie and Chu Le to send Madame Dowager out of the door on her behalf, and also sent some medicinal herbs and other tonics to the carriage outside. After the carriage left, the two maids came back to report. "Miss, can it be done?" Yu Jie knew Xiao Wanru's plan, so she couldn't help asking after coming back. She came to the capital city with Qin's mansion and also followed Xiao Wanru to Duke Xing's mansion. Compared with Qin's mansion, Duke Xing's mansion was much more powerful, so how could Qin Yuru insist on it? "Qi Rongji is the key." Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and said confidently. She had originally thought that her grandma or Aunt Shui would come, but this time was just the right time. Although Qin Yuru was a married daughter, her matter involved a lot of things, so Qin Huaiyong would definitely not sit still. At that time, he would definitely ask Shui Rulin and old Madame Qin to come forward, and Xiao Wanru happened to be waiting for them here. This was a matter of mutual benefit. As long as she reminded them, Qin's mansion would understand. As for whether they could pull Duke Xing's mansion into the trap, it would depend on the ability of Qin Huaiyong and Duke Yong's mansion. In fact, both Qin Huaiyong and Duke Yong's mansion could not be underestimated. Qin Huaiyong had skipped several levels in the capital city, and Duke Yong's mansion could send a girl who was like a daughter from a good family, which was enough to prove that they were not simple. Duke Xing's mansion could not be cleared this time. Chapter 617. Xiao Yanru really couldn't clear her name. First, she fought with the young madam of Duke Yong's mansion. Everyone in the capital city knew how bad the reputation of the young madam of Duke Yong's mansion was. Even after 2 or 3 years, everyone still despised her when it was mentioned. No family would mention the young madam of Duke Yong's mansion when they sent invitations to it. Therefore, after the young madam of Duke Yong's mansion got married, she almost lived a closed-door life. Even if her relatives had something to do, the young madam of Duke Yong always claimed to be ill and refused to go out. In fact, everyone knew that it was Countess Yong who felt ashamed of her and didn't allow her to go out. It was really not a good thing to fight with such a woman, which not only tore her hair but also scratched her face. No matter how good Xiao Yanru's reputation was, it was tarnished by this matter. It was not a good thing to confront the young madam of Duke Yong whose reputation had been ruined in any way. Moreover, the young madam of Duke Yong's mansion's words were very reasonable. It was said that she had told the old maid who sent the letter in this way before. At that time, she had told the old maid in front of many people and didn't hide it from others. There was a witness to prove that the young madam of Duke Yong's mansion really didn't have any malice. She just wanted to find an opportunity to get along well with her younger sister who had a grudge against her in the past. As for why the old maid disobeyed her in public but opposed her in private, the people of the Ministry of Justice asked the old maid to say that the people of Duke Xing's mansion came over and secretly asked her to give her a lot of silver and let her go far away after that. However, there was another doubt in this matter. The old maid said so, but there was no suitable witness in Duke Xing's mansion. The people of the Ministry of Justice took the old maid to look for the old maid, but they didn't find the old maid and servant girl who had told her this at that time. This matter also involved another woman, Qi Rongji, the daughter of the magistrate of Jiangzhou. Miss Qi had always said that she did not know, but later she said that she did meet with Qin Yuru before, and they asked for a private room outside. As for what exactly they talked about, she really did not know. With the testimony of the waiter, when the Ministry of Justice came to Miss Qi again, Miss Qi finally opened her mouth. She said that it was first Miss Xiao's idea to go there that day, not to plot anything with Qin Yuru. It was just that first Miss Xiao asked her to pass a few words to Qin Yuru. The Ministry of Justice asked her to repeat these words. These words were specious, but they did not mean that he would definitely seduce Qin Yuru to deal with Xiao Wanru. But after thinking about it carefully, it was really possible. The people of the Ministry of Justice presented the investigation to the emperor. The emperor was furious. He called Duke Xing, Duke Yong, and Qin Huaiyong to the front of the emperor and scolded them severely. He even threw a few memorials to the three of them. These were all memorials to the three of them. Some said that Duke Xing indulged his daughter to commit murder, some said that Ningyuan army general indulged his daughter to be vicious, and some said that Duke Yong's backyard was not peaceful. How could a person who could not even have a peaceful backyard be able to rule the country and pacify the world? The pen in the hands of the literati had always been the sharp blade in the hands. He scolded the three of them severely. Although everyone said that they were right, no one could be clean. Although no one died in the end and Xiao Wanru was lucky enough to escape the disaster, the emperor could not let them go in vain. The three of them were fined their salaries for 3 years and scolded severely. After that, Qin Huaiyong and Duke Yong were asked to go back first, leaving Duke Xing to be punished. Duke Xing's chubby body knelt on the ground with a few messy memorials on him. Hearing that the emperor asked him to stay, he became more and more flustered. He stole a glance at the emperor, whose face was as dark as water, and had a very bad feeling. It became quiet in the imperial study. After a long time, the emperor threw a memorial in front of him with a cold snort and said coldly, "Have a look." Duke Xing carefully picked up the memorial and read it 10 lines at a glance. When he finished reading, he was sweating profusely and said in a trembling voice, Your Majesty, what do you think of this idea?" The emperor suddenly interrupted him. Duke Xing did not hear the emperor's words for a moment and looked up at the emperor in astonishment. "I say, what do you think of this idea? At least in this way, it can make people understand that you are indeed fair and selfless. Of course, you will not send your eldest daughter to plot against 5th Miss Xiao." The emperor impatiently repeated his words again. But, even though he had a bad feeling in his heart, when he saw the memorial in front of him, Duke Xing still felt as if he was on a stormy sea, and his hands were trembling violently. Only in this way can you prove your innocence. Otherwise, people will say that you plot against the orphan daughter of the first branch for the title of nobility. The orphan daughter of the first branch has a very pitiful life experience. At that time, she was just recognized by you, and then she was driven to the Yuhui nunnery to cultivate in seclusion. Don't tell me that she wanted to go there by herself. On that day, there were many accidents in your mansion. Not only did someone elope at night, but someone also wanted to burn her courtyard. If it weren't for the vigilance of the servant girl, she would have been dead for several years. The emperor said coldly, and his eyes fell on Duke Xing coldly. "Your Majesty!" Duke Xing looked at the emperor imploringly, but the emperor, who was sitting on the high seat, looked at him with cold eyes without any warmth. "If you think that this matter can continue and your eldest daughter's reputation can be the same as that of the young madam of Duke Yong's mansion, then you can tear it apart slowly. I'll just watch the fun. In the end, it may be the Empress Dowager who has the final say." The emperor's voice calmed down. He picked up the teacup at hand and took a sip of tea. His eyes fell on Duke Xing, who was kneeling on the ground again. He waved his hand and told the chief eunuch beside him and Durong, "Go, let him go." Durong took the order and came over. He looked at Duke Xing, whose face was ashen, and said with a smile, "Duke, you'd better go out with me. The emperor is also tired now and needs to take a rest. When you think it through, you can deal with this matter. If someone from the Ministry of Justice comes over, please cooperate with him." After saying that, he reached out to help Duke Xing up. "Your Majesty." Duke Xing shivered and suddenly withdrew his hand. He looked at the emperor, who was sitting on the high seat with his eyes slightly closed, and said, "Your Majesty, don't worry. I will draft a memorial when I go back. I will definitely write it according to this." Duke Xing's heart was almost bleeding. Since his eldest brother left, he had always thought that the whole Duke Xing knew about it. He had never expected that he would be forced to this point. How could his daughter be compared with the woman who had no reputation at all? His daughter was a piece of jade, while the young madam of Duke Yong's mansion was a piece of rubble. How could she fight the rubble head-on with a piece of jade? What about her? Moreover, his daughter carried the hope of the whole Duke Xing's mansion, which was more important than his son. How could he let that woman ruin it? Or in other words, not only ruin it, but also arouse the emperor's suspicion. "That's the best. You can leave." The emperor waved his hand coldly and frowned. "You'd better end these trivial things as soon as possible. I have to deal with this kind of thing for you every day. When great elder princess did this, and so did you. What's wrong with you? Can't it be solved? If the Empress Dowager didn't ask me to deal with this matter, I wouldn't want to deal with this matter for you. Your Majesty, it's our fault." Duke Xing lowered his head and said respectfully, "You are indeed not. All of you are at fault. Great elder princess did this, and so did you. Leave now." The emperor's voice became more and more impatient. Duke Xing did not dare to hesitate anymore. After bowing to the emperor again, he stood up and retreated to the door, and then turned to leave. The next day, Duke Xing's memorial shocked the whole imperial court. It was a memorial requesting to confer the title of heir of Duke Xing. It was not the first young master of Duke Xing's mansion, but the third young master of Duke Xing's mansion, who was the son of the former heir of Duke Xing. After Duke Xing finished reading the memorial on the spot, the whole imperial court was silent. This was really unexpected. Many people knew that Duke Xing's memorial requesting to confer the title of heir of Duke Xing had been submitted before, but it was for his own son. What had happened? Some sensitive people had already remembered the rumors outside. It was said that it was related to the title of nobility. It was said that and great elder princess's granddaughter, who was also the niece of the first branch of Duke Xing's family, had an accident, and it was related to his daughter. Although the information of the Ministry of Justice was not allowed to be leaked, the people present were not ordinary people. If they really wanted to investigate it, they could find something. The emperor, who was sitting high on the throne, just waved his hand. Durong trotted down, took the memorial from Duke Xing, bent down, stepped up the steps, and presented the memorial to the emperor. "Let's discuss this matter later," the emperor said lightly. Duke Xing secretly wiped his cold sweat, bowed respectfully to the emperor, and then returned to the front of the steps. The memorial requesting to confer the title of heir of Duke Xing was not so simple, and the process could not be completed by a memorial. Now it was accepted, and then it was up to him to submit another memorial. After all, now he was the legitimate Duke Xing, and his son was good, so it would be controversial to give the title of heir of Duke Xing to his nephew. Although he comforted himself in this way, he always felt anxious and absent-minded about what would be discussed in the imperial court. Finally, after the imperial court meeting was over, he hurried out with a less smile on his face than usual. When he got out of the palace gate, He went directly to Duke Xing's mansion. In the carriage, Duke Xing's face was gloomy, and there was no smile on his face at all. He reached out to take out a note from the secret compartment of the carriage and slowly read it. He did not expect that such a small thing would involve him, but it was just a small loss. The case of the Ministry of Justice was closed quickly. On the one hand, it was because there was no murder case, and on the other hand, it was the intention of and Great Elder Princess. Although there were still some doubts about this matter, Great Elder Princess thought that it might be a trivial matter between a girl in the boudoir. Although there was a grudge, it would not be brought to the Ministry of Justice. Therefore, the Ministry of Justice mentioned this matter and put it down gently. This matter was very serious, and there was even a rumor that Duke Xing killed Duke Xing for the title of nobility. But Duke Xing also said that it was just a rumor. In order to clear up the rumor, he specially submitted a memorial. At this time, a piece of news came from in Great Elder Princess's mansion. Chapter 6:18. Because the fifth miss of Duke Xing's mansion was seriously injured and the Yuhui nunnery had been restless recently, she decided to cultivate in Huaguang Temple for a period of time. As a royal temple, Huaguang Temple was the largest temple in the capital city. Its scenery and Buddhist doctrine were far better than that of the Yuhui nunnery. Xiao Wanru was also of royal blood, so she naturally had the right to cultivate in Huaguang Temple for a few months, unlike ordinary pilgrims who could only stay in Huaguang Temple for a few days. Huaguang Temple had always only allowed ordinary pilgrims to stay in it for a month, but there was no limit for the royal blood. When Xiao Wanru went to Yuhui nunnery before, on the one hand, it was also because Mingqiu nun was also there, and it was convenient for her to see Mingqiu nun if they lived close to each other. On the other hand, it was more convenient for women to cultivate in the nunnery for 3 years. Now there was no need for such concerns. Mingqiu nun had now adapted to life in the capital city and could live a good life in Yuhui nunnery without her company. Besides, she didn't have much time left. Although it was said to be 3 years, it was only a few months away. And Great Elder Princess had gone to Duke Xing's mansion to discuss with the people of Duke Xing's mansion that she planned to let her finish 3 years of cultivation before the Spring Festival. When she went to Yuhui nunnery before, it was a few days after the Spring Festival, and it was just a few days before and after the Spring Festival. At that time, she only needed to dress up lightly. And Great Elder Princess meant that she was such a young girl who went up the mountain to cultivate in seclusion. Now she was already 14 years old, so she should be allowed to participate in the Spring Festival. A 14-year-old girl was neither old nor young. If she wanted to look at her, she could look good. Xiao Wanru didn't know how and Great Elder Princess persuaded old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion, but in the current situation, it was indeed the best time to raise conditions. It was rare for and Great Elder Princess to be refreshed when she came back from Duke Xing's mansion. After visiting Xiao Wanru in a good mood, she went to prepare the things needed for Xiao Wanru's cultivation in Huaguang Temple. This time, she couldn't be as hasty as last time. Originally, after such a thing happened, she should rest for a period of time after being frightened, as long as she didn't attend the banquet. Duke Xing's mansion was now in the teeth of the storm. Not only was Duke Xing's mansion punished, but the whole Duke Xing's mansion was also disgraced. As for the first Miss Xiao, who had always liked to show her beauty, elegance, and dignity in front of others, she had not gone out recently. It was said that she was seriously injured when she fought with Qin Yuru that day. It would take a long time for her to recover without any scars. But these were all hearsay. One day, a carriage slowly arrived at and Great Elder Princess mansion, and an old maid came down to report. Coincidentally, and Great Elder Princess entered the Imperial Palace to accompany the Empress Dowager to listen to Buddhist scriptures, so the servant reported it to Xiao Wanru. The first miss of Duke Xing's mansion? Hearing the servant girl's report, Yu Jie was stunned for a moment, thinking that she had heard it wrong. Yes, it's the first miss of Duke Xing's mansion. She specially came to see the 5th Mississippi. The servant girl proved her words again. Miss, what is the eldest miss doing here? Isn't she still injured? Can her face be seen? Yu Jie said in surprise. That day, She saw with her own eyes how badly Xiao Yanru's face was beaten by Qin Yuru. How could Xiao Yanru recover in just a few days? Invite her in. Xiao Wanru frowned slightly, thought for a moment, and said. The servant girl who reported to her took her order and left. Miss, what is she doing here? What a coincidence. Great Elder Princess is not here, but she comes here. If Great Elder Princess is here, I'm afraid that she won't even see her. Chu Lu also said angrily. That day, the first miss had made a fool of herself, but now she still had the face to come here. Chu Lu also knew that it was unreasonable for Xiao Wanru not to let her in. After all, in order to show their innocence, Duke Xing's mansion even submitted a memorial for Master Hao's conferment, which seemed to be selfless. At this time, if Xiao Wanru didn't let her in, it would seem that Xiao Wanru was rude. If her Great Elder Princess said this, it would be acceptable. But Xiao Wanru, as her cousin, couldn't do it. Of course, she came here after knowing it. Xiao Wanru said leisurely. Miss, do you mean that she had sent someone to keep an eye on Great Elder Princess's mansion and came here immediately after Great Elder Princess left? Qin Yu opened her eyes wide and thought for a while. She was so shocked that she gasped and said, First Miss Xiao is really resourceful. To be able to send people to monitor the whereabouts of the Great Elder Princess every day and even know the specific whereabouts of the Great Elder Princess, this was not something an ordinary young lady could do. There were many people around the Great Elder Princess. If there was really someone suspicious watching her, how could the people around the Great Elder Princess not know? It could be seen that even if there was someone keeping an eye on Great Elder Princess, it was not an ordinary person. If First Miss Xiao really had such a person in her hands, it would not be a good thing. Qin Yu was extremely worried. She is not resourceful, so it's not her doing. Xiao Wanru shook her head. She had some conjectures in her heart, but of course, she would not expect that it was Xiao Yanru's ability. It was not something that an unmarried girl could do. Only a smart secret guard could do it to keep an eye on Great Elder Princess's whereabouts without Great Elder Princess noticing. As for who this secret guard belonged to, Xiao Wanru could not guess for a moment. It might be Chu Liuyue's, Chu Liuzhou's, or Duke Xing's, but it would definitely not be Xiao Yanru's. In her previous life, she lived a muddle-headed life and died under Xiao Yanru's plot before she even figured out her background. In the end, when she was cut in half at the waist, she also figured out that Xiao Yanru did not only plot against her, but she was just a bystander. Without her, Duke Xing's mansion could rest easy and didn't have to worry that the original thing would be exposed. But the most important thing was to help Chu Luiyue and push him back to the throne of the Crown Prince of the Eastern Palace. However, Chu Luchen was too powerful, so Chu Liuyue's ending would not be good. Now, she came in a hurry with a wound on her face. It should not be just for the sisterhood with her. Others might not know about the so-called sisterhood, but how could the two of them not know? It was obvious that they hated each other, so it was better for them not to see each other. If she guessed correctly, there should be another plot. The death of her parents was the pain of her life. She always felt that there was something fishy about it. How could there be such a series of accidents? It seemed that after her father left, everything had been buried. If it wasn't for someone scheming in the dark to help cover up the whereabouts of her parents, she wouldn't have been able to find out about it. If it was not for someone scheming secretly to help cover up her parents' whereabouts, how could Duke Xing's mansion and Great Elder Princess really not find out the whereabouts of her parents? If she wanted to find out these things, she had to investigate from Duke Xing's mansion. Now all the people in Duke Xing's mansion were biased against her, so it was not a very easy thing. Fortunately, there was still the third branch. She had successfully provoked the third branch's anger before. There had been a gap between the second branch and the third branch, but she didn't know how much the third branch knew and how much it could tell her. With Duke Xing's cautiousness, it would be difficult for others to detect anything. Now Xiao Yanru came, which was a good opportunity. Xiao Yanru came with a veil. Only a pair of watery eyes could be seen under the veil, which still looked beautiful and moving. As for the face under the veil, Xiao Wanru couldn't see it. However, judging from her current appearance, she was not very comfortable. It was not a small matter that she came with an injury. Fifth sister, how are you? After entering the door, Xiao Yinru looked at Xiao Wanru, who was lying on the bed. Seeing that her face was still as pale as snow and not as white and tender as before, she asked with concern in a soft voice and then sat down in a chair beside her. After serving tea, Qin Yu stood behind Xiao Yenru. Yu Jie and Chu Lu had been sent out by Xiao Wanru, leaving Qin Yu alone in the room to serve Xiao Yenru. In terms of shrewdness, among the 3 servant girls, Qin Yu was the least clever, but she looked very kind. A gentleman could be deceived with methods. "I'm okay. Thank you for your concern, big sister." Xiao Wanru's smile was a little faint, and there was a trace of cold mist in her watery eyes. She looked a little soft, but also a little cold, which made people unconsciously want to avoid her almost emotionless eyes. She couldn't see through her emotions, but she seemed to be able to see through others' hearts, which was a big taboo for everyone. Xiao Yinru looked at Xiao Wanru without avoiding her eyes, and there was just the right gentleness in her eyes. No one knew that her nails under her long sleeves were almost broken, and she felt a tingling pain in her palms. However, this also made her sober and she slowly relaxed her hands. She slowly suppressed the hatred in her heart. It was not the right time yet, and she still needed to make use of Xiao Wanru now. "Fifth sister, I really don't know what happened before, and I don't know why Qi Rongji said that. At that time, I adopted my mother not because I liked her, but because I really liked you. However, you were unwilling, so I could only accept her. I didn't expect that she was an ungrateful person. She said that my father coveted the title of nobility. If my father really coveted the title of nobility, how could he really submit a memorial to ask for the title of nobility for Brother Hao?" Xiao Yinru's voice was very soft, with a little sadness. She slowly lowered her head, as if she really felt sorry for her mother. Only when she lowered her head, a trace of ferocity and viciousness flashed in her eyes, but in an instant, she looked extremely weak, as if the previous expression was not real. Xiao Wanru had been staring at her, so she naturally saw the expression when she lowered her head. She slightly raised the corners of her mouth and thought that Xiao Yinru was really good at talking. What she said was often partly true, and then partly false, so that it was difficult to tell whether it was true or not. It was no wonder that Xiao Yinru seemed to have lived a smooth life in the last life. It could be seen from the fact that Xiao Yinru still pretended to want to be on good terms with her sister, even though she obviously wanted to cut her into pieces. However, the bloody lesson in the last life made her clearly know that what Xiao Yinru showed was what she wanted others to see. In fact, she was so vicious that it made people's hair stand on end. The weaker she showed now, the greater her ambition was. Chapter 619. Big sister, what do you want to say? Xiao Wanru frowned and said impatiently. Since Xiao Yinru knew that her grandma had left, she must have expected that Xiao Yinru, who had been frightened and almost lost her life, would sound hostile to her. Since Xiao Yinru was here, she naturally didn't come to quarrel with her. "I just want to see you, fifth sister. No one wants such a thing to happen, but I didn't expect that this thing would happen to our mansion in the end. Outsiders saw it as a joke and even said a lot of bad things about our mansion and fifth sister. It's really painful for our relatives and pleasing for our enemies." Xiao Yinru said with an increasingly aggrieved look. She wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief and looked up with tears in her eyes. However, she tried her best to smile. However, because she forced herself to smile, her smile looked a little more bitter. It was not very strong, but it could still be seen at a glance. Such an expression was very realistic and not exaggerated. In this case, it should be such an expression. "Fifth sister, you and I belong to the same family. We should work together, but it's really shameful for outsiders to praise us like this. Duke Xing's mansion is incomparable to our Qin's mansion, where you used to stay. We are closely related by blood, so how can others plot against us? Grandma originally had some misunderstanding about you, but after my mother and I persuaded her these days, she should be much better. Maybe she will come to see you in person in a few days. Eldest uncle used to be Grandma's favorite son." Xiao Yinru said, turned her head and wiped the tears at the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief. When she turned her head, her eyes were slightly red. It was obvious that she had cried. She said this extremely sincerely, almost from the bottom of her heart. She looked at Xiao Wanru with a distressed look, as if she really felt sorry for Xiao Wanru's previous suffering. If Xiao Wanru really fell off the cliff this time and survived to fall on the branches on the cliff, her physical injury would be serious, but her psychological injury would probably be more serious. Everyone knew that physical wounds were easy to heal, but psychological wounds were hard to heal. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. Xiao Yinru was really good at talking. Xiao Yinru asked about her injury again and again, but she didn't mention her psychological injury, as if it was just a trivial injury on her body and she shouldn't make such a big deal out of it. Xiao Wanru's words implied some blame and pity. He couldn't get angry, but he couldn't complain either. Blood relatives, broken bones, connected tendons? Perhaps this kind of so-called blood relatives were the most vicious. Only when people were unprepared would they ruthlessly stab you with a knife, killing you in one strike. Big sister, I'm very tired. Xiao Wanru lay back. Her long eyelashes fluttered twice, and then she slowly closed her eyes, looking both mentally and physically exhausted. Her words changed so quickly that the aggrieved and affectionate atmosphere created by Xiao Yinru just now was swept away, and there was even a touch of indifference in her words. Xiao Yinru was so angry that she almost couldn't control herself. However, she had amazing composure. She reached out to tie up a few strands of hair around her ear and asked with concern in a soft voice, "Has your injury not healed yet?" "First, miss, my master has nightmares every night and can't sleep well. She even seldom eats. Every time she sees some food, she will vomit it out. She has no appetite at all. Although her injury has healed, she has a headache, so she can't talk about what happened before." Qing Yu seemed to be unable to stand it anymore and said honestly. Xiao Yinru couldn't listen to it, couldn't sleep, and even had a headache. No wonder Xiao Wanru looked so poor. Xiao Yinru was happy in her heart and showed a gentle smile on her face. She was not gloating over Xiao Yinru's misfortune, but really cared about her. "Then I won't talk about it anymore. No matter what happened, it has finally been solved. However, it also made me see clearly what kind of person Qi Rongji is. I won't trust her in the future." Speaking of this, Xiao Yinru changed the topic and said, "Fifth sister, let bygones be bygones. You should take good care of yourself and don't think too much about what happened that day. The horse accident on the cliff even alarmed the emperor. You have to be careful in the future. No matter where you go, you have to be careful when you take the carriage. Even on the flat ground, you have to be careful. Who knows if there will be any accident? Didn't the danger you had outside the palace gate happen on the flat ground?" Xiao Yinru seemed to care about Xiao Wanru and told her to be more careful when she went out. But in fact, if Xiao Wanru, who had suffered from psychological trauma, heard her words, she would probably not dare to take a carriage anywhere in the future. However, how could a miss from an aristocratic family not take a carriage when she went out? Xiao Yinru was not comforting her but threatening her. "I won't take a carriage in the future." After hearing her words, Xiao Wanru murmured with a pale face. Her voice was not high, but it was loud enough for Xiao Yinru to hear clearly. "Miss, how can you go out without a carriage?" Qing Yu said in a daze. As an honest servant girl, of course, she would say what she wanted to say. Moreover, she was Xiao Wanru's servant girl who grew up with Xiao Wanru, so she didn't have too many scruples. "In fact, there is a way. We can take a sedan chair," Xiao Yinru suggested knowingly. Sedan chairs were used to go out in the capital city, but they were usually used to go to places nearby. Sedan chairs were a little slower and made a lot of noise when they went out, which displeased many misses from aristocratic families who seldom went out on the street. No one was willing to go shopping with a few sedan chair bearers, which seemed to be very arrogant. "Take a sedan chair?" Xiao Wanru opened her eyes and said, "Yes, take a sedan chair. If Great Elder Princess's mansion doesn't have one, we have one in our mansion. I'll ask someone to bring one here after I go back. Fifth sister, it's not bad to take a sedan chair when you go out in the future." Xiao Yinru's beautiful eyes looked very gentle, and she was indeed a good elder sister. "No, thank you, big sister. Grandma should also have one." Xiao Wanru refused. "Well, I think Great Elder Princess's mansion should also have one. Xiao Yanru didn't insist and said indifferently. She looked calm, as if she really just mentioned it casually. Going out in a sedan chair, it seemed that Xiao Yanru intended to let her use it all the time. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. If it weren't for the memory of her last life, she would probably think that this method could cure her panic disorder at the sight of a carriage. In this world, there were panic disorders caused by being frightened by a carriage, and naturally, there were panic disorders caused by being frightened by a sedan chair. However, the panic disorder caused by a sedan chair was much more serious than that caused by a carriage. However, many people didn't know about it, and it was also because the news had been blocked and outsiders couldn't spread it at will. If it weren't for the farce she had seen in the palace in her last life, she probably wouldn't have thought of Xiao Yanru's vicious intention. She often went out in a sedan chair. If she couldn't see that person once, she would see him twice. If 2 times were not enough, she would see him 3 times. Moreover, she believed that Xiao Yanru must be able to trick that person to come to her. First, miss, thank you for your idea. As an honest servant girl, Qin Yu was overjoyed, bowed to Xiao Yanru and said gratefully. A servant girl who was honest and straightforward was easy to deal with. Xiao Yanru was complacent. After picking up the teacup at hand and taking a sip, she raised her head again and said, "Fifth sister, do you know that father has submitted a memorial for brother how to be conferred the title of crown prince?" Xiao Wanru nodded but didn't say anything. Submitting a memorial for conferring the title of crown prince can't be done once. After a period of time, father has to submit another memorial for conferring the title of crown prince. Usually he has to submit at least 3 memorials, or even more. But don't worry, fifth sister. Since father has this intention, he will submit them one by one. But I'm afraid. Speaking of this, Xiao Yanru hesitated for a moment and looked at Xiao Wanru as if she wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Xiao Ru looked at her without batting an eyelid. She didn't respond to her. Her expression was calm, and her long eyelashes fluttered. Her clear eyes carried a hint of indifference, as though this topic couldn't interest her. First, miss, is there anything wrong? Qin Yu couldn't help asking hurriedly. If the emperor doesn't agree, it may take a long time. If you want the emperor to make a decision as soon as possible, there is actually a way, but I don't know, fifth sister. Xiao Yanru looked more and more hesitant and looked at Xiao Wanru with hesitation. First, miss. Qin Yu couldn't help saying. Qin Yu, don't be presumptuous. Xiao Wanru said coldly. She didn't look as anxious as Xiao Yanru expected. However, judging from Qin Yu's reaction, she knew that Xiao Wanru was also anxious. However, Xiao Wanru was shrewd and couldn't find it easily. Unfortunately, she brought this servant girl out today, which was a failure. The servant knew the master. Seeing that the servant girl was so attentive, she knew that Xiao Wanru had actually taken her words into consideration, but didn't show it. I heard that some things left by uncle at that time are all in your hands. If you can take out a few things and send them to the emperor, you may be able to remind the emperor of his friendship with uncle at that time. In that case, the petition to be conferred the title of heir of the duke will be issued early. Xiao Yanru looked very embarrassed and said, but I also know that first uncle didn't leave many things behind. Fifth sister, the more you give him, the less he will have. But if these things can be of great use, even first uncle will be happy to know it in the netherworld. Xiao Yanru was indeed the most scheming one. Today, she came to Great Elder Princess Mansion not only to accomplish one thing, but also to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. A trace of sneer flashed across Xiao Wanru's eyes. She stared straight at Xiao Yanru's face, but didn't say anything, as if she wanted to see every tiny expression on Xiao Yanru's face. Xiao Yanru involuntarily moved her eyes away from Xiao Yanru's, but then she turned her eyes back and looked at Xiao Wanru with a clear conscience. She secretly despised Xiao Wanru in her heart. She didn't believe that Xiao Wanru could know anything. However, Xiao Wanru had always been shrewd, so she couldn't let Xiao Wanru sense anything wrong. The two of them looked at each other as if they wanted to find some subtle expressions on each other's faces. However, Xiao Wanru could only see a pair of eyes, while Xiao Yanru could see the expression on Xiao Wanru's whole face. There seemed to be an invisible and strange atmosphere flowing in the air. Chapter 620. After a long while, Xiao Wenru reached out to gently touch her forehead and said lightly, "Thank you, big sister. My father didn't leave anything good. He just left some things for me and to remember. They are not enough to be sent to the emperor for the sake of the emperor." The invisible strangeness in the air immediately dissipated in her faint voice. However, this dissipation made Xiao Yenru want to vomit blood. The atmosphere just now seemed to indicate that something was going to happen, but in the end, she just said lightly. She failed to achieve her goal, so she was really unwilling to give up. "Fifth sister, no matter what it is, as long as it can remind His Majesty of eldest uncle's kindness, it can be done." Xiao Yenru felt a little ashamed and annoyed. She secretly gritted her teeth, but still looked gentle. "Big sister, you can go back." Xiao Wenru said non-committally and then asked her to leave. Even though Xiao Yenru had the best self-restraint, she couldn't bear it at this time. She suddenly stood up with anger in her eyes and said, "Fifth sister, I really do it for your good. Why can't you appreciate my kindness?" "Thank you for your kindness, big sister. You've always said that you're doing this for my own good, but ever since you did that, I kept getting into trouble. This time, I almost lost my life. I really don't deserve your kindness," Xiao Wenru said calmly. She sounded as if she was talking about someone else's business, and her pink face was peaceful. Xiao Yenru's expression and words angered Xiao Yenru. After being angry, she smiled and said, "Fifth sister, I just said that it really has nothing to do with me. Even His Majesty has asked the officials of the Ministry of Justice to go back. It can be seen that this matter has been investigated. It's not done by me. It's between Qi Rongji and Qi Nur. As for why they want to deal with you, I think you should understand. Haven't you been like this for so many years?" Because of anger, her words were not tactful, which was very different from the way Xiao Yenru tried to show in front of others in the past. After saying this, Xiao Yenru also realized that it was not good. She wanted to say something to make up for it, but was interrupted by Xiao Wenru rudely. "Big sister, you are right. The officials of the Ministry of Justice don't go to Duke Xing's mansion or Duke Yong's mansion now, but does it mean that it has nothing to do with you? Big sister, I will investigate this matter. If I find out who harmed me, no matter who it is, I will not let them off." The smile on Xiao Wenru's face faded, and she looked a little fierce, which reminded Xiao Yenru of Ru and great elder princess inexplicably. Xiao Yenru couldn't help feeling guilty, but she refused to show weakness. "Fifth younger sister, just go and investigate it. You must investigate it clearly. Otherwise, I will feel guilty as if I really hurt fifth younger sister." The old maid who stirred up trouble had been beaten to death with a fair reason. Even if they wanted to investigate it, they could not find anything. The old maid in the hall of the Ministry of Penalty was dying recently. There were many people in prison who were infected with diseases. What's more, the Ministry of Penalty had already closed the case, so it was not a big deal for them to deal with it. Xiao Yenru was just an old maid. How could she get herself involved? Xiao Yenru said this confidently. "Big sister, do you want to prove that you didn't hurt me?" Xiao Wenru suddenly smiled and asked. Xiao Wenru was extremely beautiful. At this moment, her smile was like 100 flowers blooming, which was so beautiful that it made people's hearts flutter. However, this overly gentle smile made Xiao Yenru feel uneasy, but she still said firmly, "How can I prove it?" "Big sister, why don't you beat Qin Yuru and Qi Rongji for me again? You have to help me vent my anger," Xiao Wenru said. Xiao Yenru's face turned red, which reminded her of the humiliation of fighting with Qin Yuru that day. Not only did she lose face in front of others, but when she returned to the mansion, her father, who had never beaten her, gave her a hard slap. This had never happened in Xiao Yenru's life of being doted on for more than 10 years. Now Xiao Wenru actually reminded her again. It seemed that something in her heart was fiercely opened. The shame and anger that she had nowhere to hide almost broke through her reason. She couldn't help but breathe rapidly. She glared at Xiao Wenru fiercely and wanted to stare a hole in Xiao Wenru's body. She didn't expect that Xiao Wanru didn't buy it even though she showed her weakness. Fifth sister, what on earth do you want? She almost said these words through gritted teeth. Big sister, I'm tired. You can go back. Xiao Wanru waved her hand and said, "Du." Xiao Yanru was furious. She clenched her fists and took 2 steps forward to approach Xiao Wanru. Qin Yu wanted to stop her, but was stopped by Shuqi. Fifth sister, you are also a member of Duke Xing's mansion. If Duke Xing's mansion is in trouble, you won't be well either. The whole Duke Xing's mansion is your backing. Although Great Elder Princess is good, she is only your maternal relative and can't interfere too much in the affairs of Duke Xing's mansion. Xiao Yanru warned. Xiao Wanru opened her eyes again, sat up a little straight with her body propped up, and then waved to Xiao Yanru. Xiao Yanru looked at her suspiciously, but still moved her face closer. Big sister, look at your face. It's really disgusting. How can I marry you now with your face? Xiao Wanru quickly pulled off Xiao Yanru's veil. Looking at Xiao Yanru's bruised face with bloodstains under the veil, Xiao Wanru raised her cherry lips sarcastically. Big sister, I heard that several princes are going to choose concubines. You are really a disgrace to our Duke Xing's mansion. I think even if these princes choose an ordinary one, they will not be willing to choose a concubine like you. You. Xiao Yanru was stunned. When she came to her senses, she pulled the veil in Xiao Wanru's hand, took a few steps back, and staggered to stand still with the help of Shuqi. She wanted to put on the veil, but her hands were trembling, so she couldn't put on the simple veil at all. Seeing that the situation was not good, Shuqi hurriedly took the veil and put it on for her. After putting on the veil, Xiao Yanru slowly suppressed the shame, anger, and humiliation in her eyes. Of course, she would not let anyone see such a face. The veil isolated all her fragility, but she didn't expect that Xiao Wanru would directly tear off her veil and expose her fragility clearly. Big sister, there will be a banquet in a few days. It seems that Big sister won't be able to go. I heard that there are a few beautiful young ladies among the officials in the capital. Maybe they will be the first to go. Xiao Wanru said lazily and leaned back again. Big sister, you can naturally stand alone with your beauty, but now it's really not a good time. In the last life, when Chu Luiwei got married, Princess Yu was not Xiao Yanru, neither was Princess Zhou, nor was Princess Exin. In the last life, Xiao Yanru finally entered the Imperial Palace and became the Emperor's consort. There must be some factors that she didn't know. In any case, Xiao Yanru didn't seem to be willing to enter the Imperial Palace and become the current Emperor's consort. At this time, it was indeed the time for the princes to choose consorts. She always felt that there were some things that were out of her control, so she would let these things slowly reveal themselves. You, what are you going to do? Xiao Yanru was still trembling and her hands and feet were cold. What am I going to do? I just want to help Big sister, just as you also want to help me. Only when we get along well can Duke's mansion prosper. After all, we are a family. If Big sister marries well, I also hope so. But now there are so many rumors about our Duke Xing's mansion, so the princes may not like us. Xiao Wanru said with a smile. Her watery eyes were as clear as glass with a hint of rippling. She knew what Xiao Yanru cared about the most. Xiao Yanru might not have noticed it in the past, but this time, she must have had a deep understanding. She said it so straightforwardly in order to directly tear off Xiao Yanru's veil of self-deception and let her face the fear in her heart. Thank you for your kindness, fifth sister. Xiao Yanru managed to stop herself from trembling and finished her sentence with great difficulty. It's okay, Xiao Wanru said lightly. Grandma is still waiting for me in the mansion. I won't disturb you anymore. I'll leave first. Xiao Yanru couldn't stay any longer. She turned around and strode away with Shuqi. After turning around, her suppressed and calm eyes suddenly became almost cold and vicious. She involuntarily clenched her fists and inexplicably felt a little flustered in her heart. Originally, she really wanted to sit on the fishing platform. No matter who was going to marry Princess Yu or Princess Zhou, she would definitely be able to take her place and become the final winner before the last step. It was not only because of her confidence in her appearance, but also because of the friendship between childhood sweethearts. But of course, it was also because of the background of Duke Xing's mansion. As long as her father was still in Duke Xing's mansion and her eldest brother was the heir of Duke Xing's mansion, both Prince Yu and Prince Zhou would be a help. With these, it was enough for her to negotiate with any winner. Of course, Xiao Yinru didn't care about the last thought in the past. She felt that even if there was no Duke Xing's mansion, it would be easy for her to get the position of Empress. Prince Yu and Prince Zhou's affection for her couldn't be alienated by others. But now she really panicked. She had to consider things that she didn't think about in the past now. Even though she always felt that these external conditions could be ignored, as long as it was her, even if she had no background, Prince Yu and Prince Zhou would still be deeply in love with her. But Xiao Wanru's words just now seemed to reveal the hidden worry in her heart. She used to be worried, but now she was afraid. Endless fear. In the past, if she was injured, either Prince Yu or Prince Zhou would send her letters in private to comfort her or coax her to give her some gifts. But in the past few days, she was injured in the mansion and didn't receive any such comforting letters. Originally, she had been holding back her temper and waiting, thinking that she would get the chance eventually. But when Xiao Wanru directly pulled off the veil covering her face, she suddenly felt afraid. "Let's go to Prince Yu's mansion." After getting in the carriage, Xiao Yanru gritted her teeth and ordered in a low voice. She clasped her hands tightly because of nervousness. Chapter 621. The carriage went straight to Prince Yu's mansion. As soon as it turned into the street of Prince Yu's mansion, Xiao Yanru's much calmer voice came from the carriage. "Let's go back to the mansion." The coachman made a big turn on the street and turned the carriage in a big direction. After turning the direction, he solemnly asked Xiao Yanru in the carriage, "First, miss, shall we go back to the mansion now?" "Let's go back to the mansion." Xiao Yanru held the handkerchief in her hand and frowned, but she didn't look as agitated as she had been just now. At this time, she couldn't act rashly. If she came to the door rashly in a panic, it would definitely be found out. Even if she went to the back door, it would be inappropriate. At this time, she couldn't panic. She took a deep breath and suppressed all the agitation in her heart. She had to think about this matter in the long run. In fact, her problem had not been solved yet. If something else happened, she would be doomed eternally. She had to calm down. The coachman didn't hesitate this time, and the carriage went straight to Duke Xing's mansion. After arriving at the mansion, the carriage stopped. Xiao Yanru got out of the carriage and walked slowly to Madame of Duke Xing's Ingyue courtyard with Shuqi. Madame of Duke Xing was dealing with affairs. Seeing Xiao Yanru come in with a calm face, she waved her hand and all the servant girls and old maids in the room left silently. Only Nanny Xing stayed. "How is it going?" Seeing her daughter frown, Madame of Duke Xing was a little anxious and asked before she sat down. Xiao Yanru sat down, picked up the tea served by Nanny Xing, took a sip, and then slowly put it down. She raised her head and said, "Mother, Xiao Wanru is very stubborn." She didn't say what first uncle left behind, and her words were full of authority. "She is very confident." "How dare she?" Madame of Duke Xing slapped the table hard with her hand and said with a cold smile, "Mother, what on earth did first uncle leave behind?" Xiao Yanru looked at Madame of Duke Xing and asked expectantly. Madame of Duke Xing waved her hand and said impatiently, "I don't know what it is exactly. Your father means that your eldest uncle may have something important in his hands, but I'm not sure whether it's true or not. We can only know after Xiao Wanru shows it to us." Speaking of this matter, Madame of Duke Xing was indeed very depressed. Duke Xing did not explain in detail. He only said that these things were very important to the whole Duke Xing's mansion and related to the future of the whole Duke Xing's mansion. If they could be found, it would be of great benefit to Duke Xing's mansion, and it could also ensure that her son would win in the end and become the heir of Duke Xing's mansion. Madame of Duke Xing and Duke Xing quarreled fiercely because of Duke Xing's petition for Xiao Yuanhao to be conferred the title of heir of Duke. Feeling the burning pain in her throat, Madame of Duke Xing looked vicious. It was all because of that bitch. It must be because of that bitch. For that bitch, he had done so much and even sacrificed his son for her. Every time Madame of Duke Xing thought of this, She felt as if there was something pressing on her heart, making her breathless. Why did her son have to rely on others? But, Mother, I can't get the answer from her. If you really want to know, you can ask her yourself. Seeing that Madame of Duke Xing seemed to be unwilling to tell her the truth, Xiao Yinru's face darkened. She put down the teacup in her hand heavily. She had a lot of troubles, so she was really unwilling to deal with Xiao Wanru for this groundless thing. She didn't even know anything, so how could she get anything from Xiao Wanru? However, her mother seemed to hide it from her and didn't want her to know. Child, how can you say that? What I do is for you and your brother. Will I hurt you? With a sharp light flashing across her eyes, Madame of Duke Xing comforted Xiao Yenru in a soft voice, with her eyes flashing sharply. Mother, since I don't know what that thing is, how can I get it from Xiao Wanru? Mother, you know that Xiao Wanru and I are just maintaining a superficial relationship now. After this accident, I'm afraid that Xiao Wanru has long been dissatisfied with me and thinks that I caused it. How can she believe what I said in this way? Xiao Yinru couldn't help feeling agitated again. She really didn't want to listen to Madame of Duke Xing's lies. In any case, this matter had nothing to do with her and should have something to do with her brother. Why did Madame of Duke Xing stare at her instead of dealing with her brother's affairs by herself? She suspects that it has something to do with you? Madame of Duke Xing sat up straight and said indifferently, the Ministry of Justice has said that it's not a big deal and has nothing to do with our mansion. It's just an accident. How can she be so scheming at such a young age and still keep pestering us? It's Qin Yuru who asked her to go down the mountain. What does it have to do with us? Speaking of this, Madame of Duke Xing was really angry. She had been to Duke Yong's mansion before. She had thought that it would be easy to take over Duke Yong's mansion and make them admit this matter. Countess Yong did not dare to disobey her, but she did not expect that she was rejected. Countess Yong refused all the conditions and benefits she put forward without hesitation, which had never happened before. Duke Xing's mansion was a first-class duke's mansion, while Duke Yong's mansion was only a third-class duke's mansion. They were not at the same level at all. In the past, Countess Yong had always tried to curry favor with her when she saw her, but she had never thought that she would refuse. Madame of Duke Xing was so angry that she flicked her sleeves and left. I don't know why she keeps pestering me. She thinks it's my idea. Mother, it's obviously not possible for me to start from Xiao Wanru. You'd better talk to Duke Yong and ask him to sacrifice a daughter-in-law with a bad reputation and let his family marry a daughter-in-law from a noble family in the future. He will definitely agree. Xiao Yinru still didn't know that Madame of Duke Xing also returned in frustration. She thought it was easier to start from Duke Yong's mansion. In the past, she had always seen how Duke Yong's mansion fawned on her mother. She would almost do whatever her mother said. She was very obedient and much easier to deal with than Xiao Wanru. As long as Qin Yuru took all the responsibility, Xiao Wanru could let down her guard and even feel a little guilty about her, and she could take advantage of the situation to get in. She can't do it either. I don't know what she has taken recently. She actually insists that Qin Yuru is not only her daughter-in-law but also old Madame's biological granddaughter. She can't push her too far, or even she will have to bear the consequences. Madame of Duke Xing said gloomily. Mother, you must let her admit it. Otherwise, something big will happen. Even if the Ministry of Justice doesn't investigate it, people in the capital city will think that we did it. When I came from the street just now, I heard many people talking about our mansion. They all said that father is pretending. If you can't settle Qin Yuru's matter, unless father begs again and again for the position of heir of Duke Yong to give it to Xiao Yuanhao, the rumors outside will not stop. Xiao Yinru curled her lips and put more pressure on Madame of Duke Xing. She didn't believe that her mother wouldn't be moved. Her mother had always thought that the position of heir of Duke Yong was in the bag. Now it was not going to be the heir of Duke Yong, so how could her mother not be anxious? If her mother put more pressure on Duke Yong's mansion, she could relax a little. Xiao Yinru didn't think there was anything wrong with it. They were all her mother's children. Why should her mother think more about her elder brother than herself? Is it really the rumor outside? As expected, Madame of Duke Xing's face changed dramatically. When I came here just now, I heard it through the carriage. I don't know whether the people on the road I passed by happened to talk a lot or the whole capital city is talking about it in private. Xiao Yinru thought for a while and said, she put the matter on accident to make it more believable. She clearly knew that her mother was suspicious. Even if she was her biological daughter, she was much worse than her biological son. Obviously, her daughter was more useful than her eldest brother's son, but both her father and mother had higher expectations of her eldest brother. It's going too far. A sharp light flashed in Madame of Duke Xing's eyes. She stood up, walked around the room twice, calmed down and sat down again. Don't worry. I'll talk to Countess Yong again. As for you, you can talk to Qi Rongji. She took advantage of us and used us. In the end, she even said some specious words to accuse our mansion. She really raised an ungrateful person. Mother, Qi Rongji said what she said to the Ministry of Justice. It's impossible for you to make her change her statement. Xiao Yinru said coldly, since she led this matter to us, you don't have to care about her. Didn't my cousin say that he lacked a legal wife? She's just right. Wang Xingxue? Yes, it's him. Except for him, a rascal, who else is qualified to marry this ungrateful person? It happens that a rascal and an ungrateful person are a match made in heaven. Xiao Yinru said with a sneer. Although Wang Xingxue was still in the capital city, he didn't make any progress. In the past, he relied on Duke Xing's mansion to live. With such a bad reputation and 2 concubines, Ning Xueqing and Dongxing, before he got married, no decent daughter was willing to marry him. In this way, he gradually changed from a child of an aristocratic family to an ignorant and incompetent hooligan. Originally, his family had some money, but now it was almost used up. From time to time, he would come to Duke Xing's mansion to ask for help. Because of Wang Yishu, Madame of Duke Xing was quite generous. Okay, let's do it, Madame of Duke Xing said with a sneer. She had planned to deal with this bitch after the matter was settled, but now she happened to meet her. Since she was nominally Wang Xingxue's godmother, she would let this bitch marry a dog. Nanny Xing, ask Wang Xingxue to come here later. Madame of Duke Xing had an idea and said with a cold smile on her face. Yes, madam, I'll go now. Nanny Xing came out from behind her and said respectfully. Go ahead. We have to let my cousin get what he wants. Mother, what do you think about Wang Yishu? Xiao Yinru nodded, picked up the teacup, took a sip slowly, and reminded Madame of Duke Xing. Nanny Xing retreated silently and closed the door of the main room for them when she was at the door. Chapter 622. Remember in 1 second, 800 $say, net. This is a wonderful free reading without a pop-up window. Let's raise this girl for a while. Madame of Duke Xing said decisively. Xiao Yinru said disdainfully, why? Haven't you raised me for so long and provided me with good food and drinks? Don't tell me that you intend to raise me for a lifetime. Since Wang Yishu came back from the Imperial Palace in a coma, it was said that she was very weak and could hardly speak. She was kept alive by soup every day, but in fact, she was grounded in the yard. There was only an old maid and a maid serving her in the yard. No one else was allowed to enter or come out. It was equivalent to living a life of confinement. You don't have to worry about this. Your father and I have other purposes. Madame of Duke Xing said impatiently. Xiao Yinru was unhappy in her heart, but she showed a faint smile on her face, stood up and said, Mother, I'm tired. You should go to deal with Qin Yuru first. The longer this matter is delayed, the worse it will be for our mansion. Prince Yu and Prince Zhou were a little angry in their letters. Tell my father that if he can't solve it soon, Prince Yu and Prince Zhou will be in some trouble. Maybe they will agree to Xiao Yuanhao's request for a conferment. Although it was Duke Xing's mansion's own business to apply for the title of heir of Duke Xing, other officials could take an attitude of agreement or opposition. Previously, Duke Xing's mansion had applied for the title of heir of Duke Xing, and many officials who were on good terms with him had opposed it. But if both Prince Yu and Prince Zhou agreed, many officials who followed them would inevitably follow suit. In this case, the title of heir of Duke Xing might really fall into Xiao Yuanhao's hands. Plead with the two princes and say more good words. Just say that this matter will be handled as soon as possible and try not to damage your reputation. Madam of Duke Xing said repeatedly. Yes, mother, I will remember. Xiao Yanru's voice became softer and softer, looking very obedient. After bowing to Madam of Duke Xing, she turned around and walked out in a dignified manner. No one noticed the mockery in her eyes. So what if her mother and father were biased? She had her own ways to make them anxious and have no choice but to clear her name. Her future was also related to the future of Duke Xing's mansion. She didn't believe that they were not anxious. Of course, she would not let go of Xiao Wanru. The trap that she had set up before could be used even if she left. This time, Tsang left in a hurry. She didn't believe that she could clean it up. She still had people in the Yuhui nunnery. Miss, Great Elder Princess wants you to stay in the mansion for a few more days. She said that she wants to make a few sets of clothes for you. These materials are bestowed by the palace. She wants you to pick a few more bolts. Grinning, Nanny Yu ordered the servants to put down the cloth. More than a dozen pieces of cloth were spread out on the table, looking exceptionally gorgeous. Fortunately, although it was gorgeous, it looked very low-key. It was mainly silver white, lakewater, light green, and pinkish white. The matching flowers were all dark patterns. It could be considered plain. It was suitable for her to wear now. Xiao Wanru put down the book in her hand, walked to the table, looked through it, and then picked up 2 pieces of cloth. One was white with some gray raindrops, and the other was light green with a few green leaves at the bottom corner. Miss, these 2 bolts of cloth are too old-fashioned. They are not suitable for you at your age. Nanny Yu reminded her. These 2 bolts of cloth were not only inconspicuous, but also old-fashioned. They were not the kind of clothes that young girls were willing to wear. Just these 2 bolts of cloth. I don't need to choose them. I will go to Huaguang Temple in a few days. When I arrive at Huaguang Temple, I can still wear the black clothes in the Yuhui nunnery. They are convenient and inconspicuous. However, I can't let down my grandma's kindness. Just these 2 sets. Anyway, I may not wear them. When I come back from Huaguang Temple in the future, I won't need to wear these thin autumn clothes. Xiao Wanru said indifferently. She did choose these 2 pieces of cloth on purpose. These 2 pieces of cloth were indeed not suitable for her. It was not that she didn't know how to choose the materials. There were many materials that were lighter and more suitable for young girls. However, she didn't intend to make clothes at the moment. However, it was difficult to refuse her grandma's kindness, so it was better to implicitly express that she didn't want to choose. She didn't dare to refuse an elder's gift. Moreover, her grandma felt that she owed her and wanted to make it up to her wholeheartedly. If she told her grandma frankly, her grandma might be sad again. So she simply chose 2 pieces of cloth that were not suitable to express her intention implicitly. Xiao Wanru was afraid that her grandma wouldn't accept such a piece of cloth. However, her grandma must know what she meant. It was not that she didn't want to accept her grandma's kindness, but it was not the right time to do it now. Nanny Yu, if my grandma asks, just tell her that you only choose 2 pieces of cloth for the time being. Now Brother Hao and I are in the teeth of the storm. It's better not to give others a chance to talk about it. Xiao Wanru told Nanny Yu again. Yes, I understand. Nanny Yu nodded with great distress. She also knew that this was the best way. However, her miss was at the right age, but she had to wear the most eye-catching and unsuitable clothes. She felt more and more upset. Has my grandma come back? She looked up at the sky outside the window. It was getting dark now, but and Great Elder Princess had not come back from the Imperial Palace. She couldn't help but feel a little worried. Don't worry, Mississippi. I have asked the supervisor nanny of Great Elder Princess before. She said that this kind of thing happened before. Sometimes when the Empress Dowager talked with Great Elder Princess enthusiastically, she would stay for dinner and come back after dinner. Miss, you can have dinner first. Then let's set the dinner first. Xiao Wanru said. Miss, there is a carriage coming from the back door. It said that first Miss Chi wants to see you. Yujia walked in a hurry, put down the food basket in her hand and said. An old maid followed her and said, Miss, This is the old maid in charge of the backyard. What's going on? Xiao Wanru looked the old maid up and down and asked. Greetings, cousin Mississippi. I was guarding at the back door just now and heard someone knocking on the door. When I opened it, I saw an ordinary carriage with a maid standing at the door. When she saw me coming out, she handed me a letter and said that she was the Miss of Magistrate Qi in Jiangzhou and wanted to see cousin Miss. As the old maid spoke, she handed a letter to Xiao Wanru respectfully. Xiao Wanru took it and took out the letter inside. When she saw that it was really Qi Rongji's handwriting, her eyes darkened. Qi Rongji grew up with her, so she was very familiar with the handwriting. Naturally, she recognized the handwriting at a glance. It was late now, and they went to the back door. No matter how she looked at it, it seemed to be sneaky. The words on the letter were very simple. I can tell you about your biological father. Her biological father had an accident at the border at that time. It was inconvenient to investigate it in the capital city. But if it was from Jiangzhou, it would be closer and easier. If there was anyone who could find something, it could only be the magistrate of Jiangzhou except for Qin Huayong. And she really wanted to find out the past of her parents. Although everything seemed to be an accident, all these accidents made the first branch of Duke Xing's mansion die and only a posthumous son was left. In the end, it was the second branch who benefited from all these accidents. Moreover, Duke Xing's mansion also dragged her younger brother to the road of being disabled. Even if Duke Xing submitted a memorial to ask for a title for her younger brother in the future, there would inevitably be many people who would disagree. It was not necessary to have Xiao Yuanhao. In addition, Xiao Yuanhao was disappointing. Moreover, in the last life, Duke Xing's mansion did not even give Xiao Yuanhao this disappointing opportunity and directly lost Xiao Yuanhao. In this life, if she had not happened to meet Hao that day and then lived in Great Elder Princess's mansion, she was afraid that she would have been dead now. In this life, it seemed that the second branch did not mean her and her younger brother any harm on the surface. But in fact, just like what happened in the last life, the second branch had always been plotting against her and her younger brother secretly. In the end, she and her younger brother were also plotted against by them and lost their lives. Her parents, her younger brother, and herself all disappeared. From then on, everything in Duke Xing's mansion had nothing to do with her and her younger brother. If Duke Xing's mansion was really so innocent, Xiao Yinru should not have treated her like this in the Imperial Palace at that time. In this life, when Bloodthirsty came back, she would make all the people who owed them pay back. Even though this matter had passed for so long, she would definitely reverse the verdict and let everything come to light. However, this letter came at the right time and seemed to be able to find out her thoughts. When had Qi Rongji been so smart? If Qi Rongji was really so smart, she would not have been in such a bad situation now. Her current situation in Duke Xing's mansion should also be worrying. Therefore, she was also anxious. Holding the letter in her hand and thinking for a while, she looked up at the old maid and asked, "Did you see the person in the carriage?" "Miss, I didn't see her, but the servant girl said that this is their Mississippi. She said that if you read this letter, you will definitely meet their miss," the old maid reported. Xiao Wanru put the letter in her hand into the envelope, and then handed the envelope to the old maid and said, "Go to tell the first Miss Qi that I am not in good health. I have taken medicine and have a good rest. If she really wants to come, let's talk about it after a period of time." "Yes, I will tell her now." The old maid nodded and took the envelope. After bowing to Xiao Wanru again, she turned around and left in a hurry. "Miss, you don't want to see Miss Qi?" Yu Jie put out the dinner and asked in surprise. "It's not me who is anxious now, but her. Why should I be anxious to see her? Besides, it may not be her." Xiao Wanru smiled slightly, picked up the rice that Chu Lu had filled for her, and said lightly, "It may not be her. Who else could it be? What does the first Miss Xiao want to do?" The first person that came to Yu Jie's mind was Xiao Yenru, and she immediately became furious. Yu Jie really felt that the first Miss Xiao, who was best at putting on airs, was too fake. Everything was so perfect that it seemed that she was a fake. She didn't know whether those people had eyes or not. It was obvious that she was a vicious woman with a dignified appearance. "It's not Xiao Yinru. It's Qi Tanyu." Xiao Wanru's face became slightly cold. This time, Qi Tianyu couldn't sit still. Qi Rongji was not so smart that she would say such words to keep her in suspense, but Qi Tianyu could. Chapter 623. Remember in 1 second 800 mail sign / say it? How could he have the face to come here? He plotted against you with the first Miss Xiao before, and now he wants to come here in the name of the first Miss Qi. He is really shameless. Yu Jie said angrily. Yu Jie, Chu Lu and the others all knew what had happened in the Yuhui nunnery. After that, Qi Tianyu went down the mountain gloomily. They didn't expect that he would come again this time. He thinks that I want to know these things very much and wants to use them to threaten me to help Qi Rongji out of trouble. He thinks that as long as he has these things, it will be easy for me to say a few words for Qi Rongji. Xiao Wanru said with a sneer. Qi Tianyu thought that although she had made some progress, she was still a girl in the boudoir with little experience. As long as he put some effort, he could still deal with her. Qi Tianyu really thought too highly of himself. However, from his words just now, Xiao Wanru could tell that there was indeed something hidden about what had happened at that time. It seemed that Magistrate Qi of Jiangzhou should have found something. Otherwise, it would be good news for Qi Tianyu to say such words. Qi Tianyu also meant to put on a show, but she didn't give them a chance to do so. Moreover, people like Qi Tianyu always acted according to the situation. If this way didn't work, he would definitely think of another way. At this time, it was best to draw a clear line with Duke Xing's mansion. If Duke Xing's mansion prospered, he would naturally attach himself to it. If Duke Xing's mansion was in a slight decline, he would immediately withdraw and leave. Has Qin made arrangements for the Yuhui nunnery? Xiao Wanru stopped thinking and changed the topic. She had to suppress the matter between Qi Tianyu and Qi Rongji. Now she was not the only one who was in the limelight. Among the people involved in this situation, she was just a victim, and she was the victim under the eyes of the public. Even if everyone was in the limelight together, she was the one who didn't have to worry about it. The pot of porridge had been stewed, but it depended on how they would deal with it next. Don't worry, Mississippi. I've asked Qing about it. Qing said that you don't have to worry. Someone has been watching over there. If anything happens, they will definitely report to you as soon as possible. Yu Jie looked around the room and found that these people were all Mrs. Henchmen, so she lowered her voice and said. Qing was scared out of her mind, and was now raised in great elder princess's mansion. It was said that her condition had stabilized now. However, the servant girl was so scared that she didn't dare to see anyone at this time. And great elder princess had placed her in a remote and empty garden and asked someone to guard her. Yu Jie to visit her from time to time. On the surface, it seemed that Xiao Wanru did not forget the servant girl, who was also frightened like her, but in fact, she contacted Qing through Yu Jie. It was inconvenient for Qing to appear in front of Xiao Wanru in her current situation, so it was just right for Yu Jie to visit her. Miss to Qing to see. Qing to Qing. We'll go to Huaguang Temple tomorrow. Xiao Wanru said with a smile and a flicker in her eyes. This was what she had discussed with her grandma. She was afraid that Duke Xing's mansion would forcefully invite her back. She was not afraid of Xiao Yanru, but afraid that old madam would come. The word filial piety would force her to go, so she left before old madam of Duke Xing's mansion came. At the back door, the old maid in charge of the back door said what Xiao Wanru had said to her, handed the letter in her hand to the servant girl beside her, entered the door, and closed the door decisively. Alas! The servant girl still wanted to knock on the door, but was stopped by a man's voice. Big brother, what should we do now? Xiao Wanru doesn't want to see me at all, but they actually want to marry me to the useless Wang Xingxue, big brother. In the carriage, Qi Rongji's face changed dramatically at once. She took the hand of Qi Tianyu, who was sitting beside her, and cried. Big brother, I don't want to marry that kind of trash. He comes to Duke Xing's mansion all day long to get what he wants. There are 2 concubines in his mansion. They quarrel with each other every day and visit brothels all the time. Big brother, even if I die, I won't marry such a person. Thinking of the news she had heard, Qi Rongji choked with sobs. She gnashed her teeth and cursed, Duke Xing and his daughter, those bitches, will die a horrible death. Didn't you insist on entering Duke Xing's mansion? Now you know that they look kind but are evil in heart. Qi Tianyu frowned tightly and was in a bad mood. Big brother, what should I do? What should I do? I want to go home. I want to go back to Jiangzhou. I don't want to come to the capital city anymore. Qi Rongji burst into tears. She didn't want to find a good husband now. She just wanted to go home. You can't go now. A trace of darkness flashed in Qi Tianyu's eyes, and his face softened a little. Why can't I go, big brother? If I stay, they will force me to marry Wang Shengxue, who is like a dog. I don't want to marry him. Even if I marry anyone, I won't marry him. Qi Rongji cried loudly and shook Qi Tianyu's hand hard. She really wanted to leave. During these days in Duke Xing's mansion, she was careful in every aspect for fear of offending people, but the final result was still like this. She was really unwilling to accept it. Don't worry, I won't let you marry Wang Shengxue. Even if he wants to marry you, he can't marry you. Qi Tianyu sneered. Of course, he didn't want such a useless brother-in-law. His sister could afford a better husband, and it was good for him and his father's career. Rongji, do you think Prince Yu or Prince Zhou is better? Big brother? Qi Rongji suddenly widened her eyes and looked at Qi Tianyu in disbelief. This was something she could only dream of at night. Qi Tianyu reached out and touched her head. You definitely can't be the princess, but if you marry into Prince Yu's mansion or Prince Zhou's mansion, everything is possible in the future. Big brother, do you mean to let me marry into the prince's mansion? Qi Rongji was surprised at first, then surprised, and then overjoyed. She was so excited that her hand holding the handkerchief was trembling. The originally hopeless thing immediately burned with a burning hope in her heart, and she looked at Qi Tianyu eagerly. Yes, my father and I both mean the same thing, but we originally wanted you to take advantage of Duke Xing's power. Now it seems that we can't take advantage of this power, but it doesn't matter if we can't. It's just that your position in the prince's mansion may be lower, but these are only temporary. My father and I will definitely help you. It was the first time that Qi Tianyu talked about his father's plan in front of Qi Rongji. Qi Rongji nodded repeatedly in surprise and was so grateful that she couldn't believe what she had heard. She hurriedly promised, Big brother, don't worry and let my father rest assured. If I can enter the prince's mansion smoothly this time, there will be no trouble in the future. I will serve the prince well and wait for my father and big brother to help me and push me to a high position. As long as she could enter the prince's mansion, she could even be the lowest concubine, which was at least much better than marrying Wang Shengxue, the disgusting man. In the future, she could also make all those who had suppressed and bullied her kneel at her feet. Xiao Wanru, Xiao Yanru, Madam of Duke Xing. Everyone was waiting for her. One day, she would trample them all under her feet. Big brother, what should I do now? Will Xiao Wanru, the bitch, ruin your plan if she refuses to see me? She reached out to lift the window and saw that the back door of Great Elder Princess's mansion was tightly closed. She immediately felt a little annoyed. If Xiao Wanru really ruined her career, she would definitely teach Xiao Wanru a lesson. Originally, I wanted to use her to clear your name and at least make you look innocent in what happened before. But now I can't even see her, so I can't say anything. In this case, you don't have to stay in Duke Xing's mansion anymore. Your elder brother is in the capital city. If something happens in Duke Xing's mansion, you can go back to your mansion. Qi Tianyu said with an idea in his mind. Previously, he had been trying to get close to Duke Xing's mansion with Qi Rongji. But now that the situation of Duke Xing's mansion was not very good, he had to stay away from it as soon as possible. He could never let the matter of Duke Xing's mansion affect him. At present, the momentum of the first branch of Duke Xing's mansion had been established. Although there were only 2 orphans and an orphan girl, almost all the momentum was aimed at them. Even Duke Xing was forced to submit a memorial to ask for the title of heir of Duke Xing. Although it was not so easy to ask for the title of heir of Duke Xing's mansion and it would not be done in this way, he could see the trend of the situation. Rongji, when you meet Xiao Wanru in the future, You must show your sisterly affection to her. No matter when and where you meet her, you must behave like this. Do you hear me? Qi Tianyu was afraid that Qi Rongji would get into trouble, so he warned her. But, big brother, when this bitch was in Jiangzhou, she made you so embarrassed and even made me lose my marriage. It's all because of these two sisters. Why should I be nice to them when I see them? Qi Rongji was unhappy. In her opinion, what happened at that time was all the fault of Qin's mansion and Qin Yuru and her sister. Qin Yuru was not a good person, so was Xiao Wanru. They were both bitches. Don't worry so much. You just need to remember that she is still a person who can't be touched for the time being. Qi Tianyu glanced at Qi Rongji and said, if something goes wrong, you may fail to marry into the prince's mansion and even have to marry Wang Xingxue in the end. Hearing what he said, Qi Rongji was immediately afraid. She nodded hurriedly and said with jealousy, Big brother, don't worry. I won't touch her for the time being and I will be nice to her. But if there is a chance in the future, you must promise me that you will never protect her. I want Xiao Wanru to kneel in front of me one day and be trampled on by me. Okay, everything will be as you wish at that time. But now, you have to listen to me. Qi Tianyu nodded. Big brother, don't worry. I will listen to you. Qi Rongji had a new hope and immediately wiped away her tears and said. Qi Tianyu leaned over and said a few words to her in a low voice. Qi Rongji nodded repeatedly. After they finished speaking, they asked the servant girl to get in the carriage, and then the carriage slowly left the back door of and great elder princess's residence. The brother and sister in the carriage did not notice that another carriage was parked at the door of a shop opposite. They had been watching for a long time. They saw the servant girl go in to deliver the letter and then return the letter. The person in the carriage did not get out, so they could not see clearly who it was. After that, the person in the carriage stopped at the back door for a long time. It seemed that he was not alone in the carriage. Otherwise, it was impossible for the servant girl to wait under the carriage for so long. Go and find out who this carriage belongs to and who the people inside are. Since they were from the Ministry of Justice, this seemingly suspicious thing had to be investigated clearly. When Shichi said, Yes, Your Excellency, a guard turned around and left. No one expected that an accident that happened when they went down the mountain would cause a disturbance in all directions, and the situation in the whole capital city became more and more treacherous because of this. Chapter 624. Remember in 1 second, 800 $say, net this is a wonderful free reading without a pop-up window. Xiao Wanru left the next morning. No one expected that when old Madam of Duke Xing took Madam of Duke Xing to Ru and Great Elder Princess Mansion, they didn't see Xiao Wanru. Old Madam of Duke Xing was so angry that she almost fainted. Xiao Wanru must have done it on purpose. Xiao Wanru knew that old Madam of Duke Xing would invite her back, but she left early. Old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion came reluctantly and then left angrily. It was rare for and Great Elder Princess to see her off at the gate. She pulled old Madam's servant with a reluctant look and repeatedly explained that Xiao Wanru wanted to observe filial piety and cultivate in seclusion for her parents. Even though he was still injured and it was difficult for him to even walk, he still asked people to carry him to Huaguang Temple. Xiao Wanru's words made old Madam, who had said that she came to invite Xiao Wanru back to the mansion to recuperate in spite of her illness, blush with shame. However, facing Ru and Great Elder Princess's smiling face, she could not say anything else. She only felt suffocated in her heart, unable to get it up or down, and almost vomited blood. In the past, she had many confrontations with Ru and Great Elder Princess. Ru and Great Elder Princess had always been strong. Even if she was wronged, she would be very strong. Usually, at this time, old Madam would show that she was at a disadvantage, and she also said that it was okay to suffer losses. After all, the two mansions were in-laws. Even if her son and daughter-in-law were gone now, she would give in to Ru and Great Elder Princess. Looking at Ru and Great Elder Princess's hateful and aggrieved look, old Madam felt that she was much smarter than Great Elder Princess. What was so great about a Great Elder Princess who only had a noble title? Now the roles were reversed. She was so angry that her face turned blue. She held Madame of Duke Xing's arm with trembling fingers and pinched Madame of Duke Xing hard. Madame of Duke Xing's face turned pale in pain, but she did not dare to make a sound. When Great Elder Princess finally finished being polite, Old Madame helped Madame of Duke Xing get into the carriage. Old Madame's face immediately darkened. She patted the carriage wall hard and said with hatred, "You have gone too far." Madame of Duke Xing rubbed her arms and gritted her teeth. "Mother, let's go to Huaguang Temple." She didn't believe that she wouldn't be able to see this girl again. She can't go now. Since she has gone to Huaguang Temple, it means that she is going to cultivate in seclusion. If we disturb her rashly, it will only cause more gossip in the capital city. Old Madame rejected Madame of Duke Xing's proposal. "Then what should we do?" Madame of Duke Xing said unwillingly. "Just do as you said before." Old Madame glanced at her and said slowly. Madame of Duke Xing was stunned at first, but then she came to her senses and nodded repeatedly. In fact, this idea was not proposed by her daughter. Since it had been arranged in advance, it should not be wrong. "Then I'll send someone to the Yuhui nunnery to get her things later." Madame of Duke Xing looked a little better. "Go." Old Madame closed her eyes and said coldly. She disliked this little granddaughter more and more. It seemed that she had no feelings for her Duke Xing's mansion. After coming out of the Yuhui nunnery, she didn't go back to the mansion and let outsiders criticize Duke Xing's mansion, but she didn't say a word for Duke Xing's mansion. She was really hateful. Thinking of this hateful girl, Old Madame thought of Infanta Qinghua again. If it weren't for Infanta Qinghua, her son wouldn't have died. He was her most promising son. Thinking of the sadness, her eyes couldn't help turning red. Her son was killed by Qinghua, but Great Elder Princess still had the face to say that she was the victim in front of her. Now Xiao Wanru was seduced by Great Elder Princess and even stayed away from her father's family without knowing what her surname was. However, this also showed that this girl and Qinghua were the same kind. Neither of them was good, and both of them came to ruin their families. The string of Buddha beads hanging in her hand slowly slid up to eliminate the anger in her heart. How could she like the things that this girl had done? Forget it, forget it. The girl in the mansion was not young, and it was really not a big deal to lose her. Before she was recognized, everyone in the mansion was amiable and nothing happened. However, after she was recognized, there were continuous accidents, as if she was really a bane. Of course, Old Madame didn't dare to say this to others. After all, she had alarmed the emperor before. When Xiao Wanru arrived at Huaguang Temple, she didn't walk on Wenxin Road. In her current situation, it was inconvenient for her to get up, so it was naturally impossible for her to have the strength to walk on Wenxin Road. After entering Huaguang Temple from the side, she came to the incense room that she had contacted before. A reception monk came over with a young novice monk in the temple and led her into the courtyard where Xiao Wanru was going to live next. For the sake of tranquility, Great Elder Princess chose a relatively remote place for her. Because Huaguang Temple was a royal temple, both the Buddha Hall and the courtyard for pilgrims were different from the small ones in Yuhui Nunnery, which looked very grand. In particular, the courtyard where Xiao Wanru lived now was said to be the courtyard for distinguished guests. It was not only quiet but also elegant. Even several famous purple bamboos of Huaguang Temple had been planted in it. There was also a stone tablet of a sage, on which the words were grand and clear. It was not inferior to the stone tablet in the forest of ancestral tablets that Xiao Wanru had seen in the purple bamboo forest of Huaguang Temple before. The courtyard was backed by the back mountain. From behind the courtyard door, there was a small stone path leading directly to the mountain. It could be seen that the mountain scenery was good. From a distance, there were rocks, trees, and pavilions towering on the mountains. From time to time, tourists passed by, but they all went to another road. This should be a small shortcut to the back mountain for sightseeing, but it was not a necessary path. In addition to another courtyard close to it, there was still a distance from this courtyard to the courtyards of other pilgrims, which was at least 2 arrows away. There was only a small Buddha hall around it. Although it was not big, the Buddha statues inside were all blessed with golden bodies. At first glance, It could be seen that they were very valuable. The layout here originally represented the bearing of the royal family. It should be used for the distinguished guests of the royal family to rest and offer incense. Ordinary pilgrims could not come here at all. There was a small rockery at the door. There were a few plum trees behind the rockery. She didn't know if it had anything to do with the mountain aura, but now they began to show their teeth. It was really a surprise. Xiao Wanru looked at the courtyard briefly and was very satisfied. It was not very big, but it was exquisite and ingenious. Even the stone tablet in the courtyard was enough for her to look at it for a month. As for the courtyard on the side, it seemed to be empty. There should be no one living there. This was better. If someone from the royal family lived next to it, she had to pretend to be seriously injured and frightened and not dare to appear in front of others. It was really a little stuffy. It was the best that no one lived next to it. There was also a tall maple leaf planted in the courtyard. It was the time when the maple leaves were in full bloom. When the wind passed, a piece of red maple leaf like fire would fall from time to time. If it was not cleaned up after a while, it would pile up under the tree. Yujie and Chu Lu were keen on picking up the beautiful maple leaves. Qing also brought the servant girl who had served in the Yuhui nunnery here. She only told others that this servant girl was a little more normal. If no one scared her, she might recover. She brought her up the mountain for the sake of her health. At the foot of the mountain, she was always disturbed too much, and it was easier to make people who were already frightened more afraid. Both Xiao Wanru and Qing were frightened. There were not many things, only a few clothes to change. As for the other necessities, Huaguang Temple said that they would provide them. It was much simpler than the previous luggage. Huaguang Temple was different from the Yuhui nunnery. Since there was a courtyard specially prepared for the royal family here, the things inside were naturally more exquisite. Although the colors were the same as other things, they were essentially different. The reception monk and the young novice monk left after leading them here, but they also said that the young novice monk would be responsible for delivering food to them in the future. If they wanted to eat anything, they could tell the young novice monk in advance. This was different from the Yuhui nunnery. Yujie and Chu Lu expressed their gratitude to the reception monk on behalf of Xiao Wanru and sent them to the gate of the courtyard. The reception monk and the young novice monk left tactfully. After they left, Xiao Wanru went to the courtyard, sat on the stone bench under the maple tree to rest, and enjoyed the scenery leisurely. Autumn was about to pass, and the weather had turned cold. The thick green on the mountain had faded, and the layers of red leaves had almost melted. But even so, the shadow of the mountain was still very beautiful, which made people feel extremely relaxed and happy. Although the lunch was also very light, the cooking was good. Xiao Wanru was in a good mood, so she added half a bowl of rice. Yujie and Chu Lu, who liked it, also kept praising it. In the afternoon, she strolled in the courtyard. After eating for a while, she went into the room to take a nap. While he was in a daze, he suddenly heard a loud noise coming from outside the courtyard. It was a very loud noise. It was as if the noise was deliberately waking him up. It was really unpleasant. Xiao Wanru sat up, reached out to rub her eyes and asked, "Is anyone there?" "Miss, you're awake." "I'm here." Chu Li's voice came, followed by footsteps. She reached out to hang the hook on the bed for Xiao Wanru and then handed Xiao Wanru a cup of warm water. Xiao Wanru took it, took a few sips to relieve her dry throat, and then asked lazily, "What's the noise outside?" Chu Lu took Xiao Wanru's cup, turned around, put it on the table and said, "Miss, they really sent something here. They said it was ours, but Yujie said it was not. They insisted on saying it, so they quarreled at the gate of the courtyard." Why did they quarrel with such a small thing? Xiao Wanru leaned back and was not in a hurry to get up. She was injured, so it was not appropriate for her to get up at this time. If it was only Duke Xing's mansion, of course, they wouldn't quarrel. But it was not only Duke Xing's mansion, but also the Ministry of Justice. Chu Lu curled her lips disdainfully. Ministry of Justice? Xiao Yenru is really capable. Is it related to Qiuyu? Xiao Wanru thought for a while and came up with a plan. It's not Lord Qiu. It's someone you can't imagine. Chu Li's face darkened. She glanced at Xiao Wenru secretly and wanted to say something, but stopped on second thought. Go ahead, Xiao Wenru said lightly. She raised her watery eyes slightly with some curiosity, and a smile appeared in her picturesque eyes. Was Xiao Yenru going to surprise her? Chapter 625. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say, net this is a wonderful free reading without a pop-up window. It's third young master Wen. Chu Lu hesitated for a moment before saying with dissatisfaction, I don't know what's going on with third young master Wen. He's actually with the big Mississippi. I used to think he was quite smart, but now I feel like he's a bit stupid and was fooled by the big miss. It's Lord Wen. Xiao Wenru corrected her with a smile. Although she was a little surprised, she was not very surprised. Xiao Yenru had no choice but to help Qiu Yu, and when Shiqi and Xiao Yenru should have a good relationship. The two mansions were originally neighbors, and the children of the two families had known each other since they were young and played together. Later on, when everyone grew up, in order to avoid boredom, it was not convenient for them to interact more. In her last life, Xiao Wenru married Wen Shiqi. Once, after when Shiqi took the medicine and fell asleep, she walked around the mansion casually and did not dare to walk too much. She just walked around and once saw a blocked small door on the wall. Originally, it should have been a place for people to leave. On the other side of the wall was Duke Xing's mansion, which showed that the relationship between the two mansions was very good at the beginning. There was even a small side door between the two mansions so that the children of the two mansions could play together. Xiao Yenru and Wen Shiqi were childhood sweethearts who grew up together. In her previous life, she just lived carefully and would not meddle in other people's business. Even if she saw it, she would not ask a word. She only had some guesses in her heart, and because of this, she panicked and was afraid for a period of time. Because of Qin Yuru, she didn't have a good impression of Duke Xing's mansion in the last life. However, she felt that Duke Xing's mansion was rich and powerful. Maybe they would open the side door at any time. If Qin Yuru came from the side door, she didn't know how to torture herself. Every time she thought of this, she was so scared that she couldn't even eat. Later, when Shiqi sensed that she was in a bad mood. After asking her for a long time, he learned that she was blocking the door. He couldn't help laughing and comforted her by saying that when they were young, they opened the door for the convenience of children playing. Later, when they grew up, it was not convenient for them to play, so the door was naturally blocked. Since it was blocked, of course, he wouldn't open it again. She just needed to rest assured. Thinking of what had happened in the last life, she wouldn't feel that there was anything wrong with Xiao Yenru contacting Wen Shiqi. Qiu Yu and Xiao Yenru had never contacted each other before, but Wen Shiqi was different. They had known each other since childhood. Even if he helped her, others wouldn't feel anything wrong. Has the box been delivered? Xiao Wenru raised her eyebrows and stopped pursuing the relationship between Wen Shiqi and Xiao Yenru. In the last life, Wen Shiqi should have been ill at this time. In this life, she reminded him and helped him avoid a disaster, which could be regarded as repaying his friendship in the last life. Yes, it's that box. I've seen it. Sister Yujia said that it didn't belong to you, but the nun sent by the Yuhui nunnery said that it was found in the silence room where you lived before. She said that you had lived in the silence room for so long, so it must belong to you. Chu Lu also said calmly. All the maids knew about Xiao Wenru, and this matter had been arranged long ago. There was nothing to panic about when it broke out at this time. A lot of people are watching? Isn't it a little far from the place where other pilgrims live? Xiao Wenru said unhurriedly. She had just woken up, and her long hair was hanging down loosely. She looked a little lazy, but her palm-sized face was more beautiful, like a beautiful painting. Every frown and smile of hers was full of charm. It's too big. The two nuns of the Yuhui nunnery and the two old maids of Duke Xing's mansion are all loud. It seems that they came all the way here and attracted people. Moreover, Lord Wen accompanied them with two officials of the Ministry of Justice. It's obvious that something big has happened, so it naturally attracted a lot of people to come to watch. Chu Lu curled her lips and said, the first Miss Xiao really made the best use of everything. She even used the nuns of the Yuhui nunnery. It was a very surprising thing that the nuns appeared in the temple. Hearing that they seemed to have quarreled, there were really not many people who didn't come to watch. At this time, the door had been surrounded by many people. If it weren't for the fact that ordinary people couldn't enter this courtyard, there would have been unruly pilgrims rushing in. "Miss, take a rest first. Just let them quarrel," Chulu said. They were really not afraid of making a big deal out of this matter. "No, go and invite Lord Wen over. I'll ask him what's going on." Xiao Wanru thought for a while and then gave an order lightly. "Invite Lord Wen in? Why do you want him to come in?" Since he came with the people of Duke Xing's mansion, he naturally helps Duke Xing's mansion. "Miss, you don't have to pay attention to him. Anyway, you are not in good health now, so it's not convenient for you to see outsiders." Chulu was not convinced. Originally, she thought that Lord Wen was good, but now she felt that Lord Wen was really stupid. What kind of top scholar was he? He didn't even see through the hypocritical and vicious face of the First Mississippi. "Since the officials of the Ministry of Justice are here, I naturally have to see them." Xiao Wanru shook her head and stopped Chu Li's sulky behavior. When Shichi should have come for something, but she didn't know whether it was a coincidence that he came this time, or he was involved in it, or he took the initiative to help. The last possibility was relatively small, but in any case, when Shichi came here and didn't leave, so there must be something serious. Although she was in poor health, she had seen a few people before. Hearing Xiao Wanru's words, Chu Lu pouted and didn't dare to really disobey Xiao Wanru. She laid a cushion for Xiao Wanru so that she could lean more comfortably. Then she put down the gauze curtain, found a screen to block the front of the bed, and went out to invite Wen Shichi. Xiao Wanru leaned on the cushion, closed her eyes slightly, and listened to the quarrel outside. She was not very clear, and it seemed that it was because the voices of other people were too noisy. Then there came the sound of footsteps. When they reached the door, they seemed to pause for a moment and then walked in slowly. "Your Excellency, please." Chu Lu had already placed a chair and a tea table on the other side of the screen. After inviting Wen Shichi to sit down, she served him a cup of tea and then stood by the screen, looking warily at Wen Shichi, who leisurely picked up the teacup, skimmed the tea foam with the lid, and took a sip. "Your Excellency, I'm sorry that I can't get up to welcome you." Behind the screen, Xiao Wanru's extremely soft voice sounded a little weak, and it seemed that she was in poor health. "Fifth Miss, you're too polite. How are you?" When Shichi put down the teacup in his hand with a smile and asked softly. He looked at the screen, on which there were pictures of beauties in 4 seasons on the gauze curtain. He couldn't see the scene on the other side. Obviously, there was something blocking his view. "I'm fine now," Xiao Wanru said in a low voice. Although she said that she was fine, she still felt that there was something wrong with the situation. "Fifth Miss, can I ask you something about the past?" Wen Shichi said in a businesslike manner. "What's the matter?" Xiao Wanru's voice behind the screen paused for a while, and then she asked slowly in a low voice. "Who did you make enemies with, Fifth Miss?" Wen Shichi's words were extremely smooth, as if he were talking about an ordinary question about the weather instead of such a serious topic. "Make enemies? Why do you say so, Your Excellency?" Although Xiao Wanru's voice was low, there was a trace of surprise in it. Wen Shichi fell silent for a moment, and his eyes still fell on the screen with pictures of beauties in 4 seasons. Something inexplicably flashed across his mind, but he failed to grasp it at the moment. He frowned and said straightforwardly, "When you were in Ningyuan Army General's mansion, you had conflicts with the First Miss and Madame D of Ningyuan Army General's mansion at that time, and also had disputes with the children of the magistrate of Zhang's mansion. After you returned to your family, you didn't get along with Duke Xing's mansion. Fifth Miss, do you think I'm right?" "Your Excellency, what do you want to say?" Xiao Wanru's voice was still as calm as water, as if what Wen Shichi said was not about her but about an ordinary passerby. "Fifth Miss, you are a weak girl. Don't you think you made too many enemies?" Wen Shichi said. After he finished speaking, he clenched his hand hard on his lap, and a trace of discomfort flashed across his eyes. What he said just now even made him feel very uncomfortable, as if he blamed Xiao Wanru for everything. However, he had investigated before and found that Xiao Wanru was actually a poor victim in these things, and she was a poor girl who was almost ruined several times. Lord Wen, what is the meaning of this? Although her voice was still weak, there was a hint of anger in it. It reminded Wen Shiqi of the little girl whose eyes lit up when she saw him at the beginning, and he inexplicably felt a little uncomfortable. He reached out to rub the area between his eyebrows, suppressed the inexplicable feeling in his heart, and explained methodically, I just want to find out who wants to do harm to you, 5th Mississippi. I don't want to blame you. Please tell me frankly, 5th Mississippi. There may be a mystery behind what you did before. His words were very official, so they were naturally vague. On the surface, it seemed that Xiao Wanru's matter had been settled, but it was sent to Wen Shiqi in private. The matter of Chongqing Grass involved a lot of things. The minister of the Ministry of Justice wanted him to ask Xiao Wanru in private and start from Xiao Wanru. No matter what, this matter was indeed aimed at Xiao Wanru. There was a moment of silence behind the screen. Xiao Wanru's long eyelashes fluttered, and she slowly opened her watery eyes with a trace of deepness in them. As expected, this matter was still under investigation. Chu Luchen had told her before that she should make peace first. No matter who was right or wrong, she should just say that since it was an accident, they would not pursue it. She just needed to be magnanimous. Chu Luchen also told Xiao Wanru not to get involved in what would happen next and warned her that with her identity, if she got involved rashly, what would happen? She wouldn't even know what would happen next. But now, when Shiqi was investigating it in front of her, and it seemed that he was going to make a mistake with her. No matter what the result would be, if he made a mistake with her, she would be involved in it, which was not a good thing for her. So, how should she answer him now? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.